Welcome everyone. Season 1, Episode 8, Phiral Sound Temples, Golden Mean Sound Temples with Mikey Bergman.
Pretty good here.
All right, Neil is unavailable. Calling a few other people right now. We got Heather on. I hit record because I like to just get started. I just hit it. We'll see. We got Mikey Bergman. This show is dedicated to Mikey Bergman as our guest and surrounding topics. He does Phiral Sound Temples, and anybody who's familiar with the Golden Mean can see the Phiral Phi 1.6180339 887 ad infinitum. But you can see that the Golden Mean is in all sorts of different things. This is a Golden Mean caliper. I made it like 13 years ago now. I made a bunch of them. But this particular episode is dedicated. Oh, I dropped that. I'm gonna need that. Hang on. To Mikey. And we have Heather. We have Michael McDuffie here. We got Will Dale. And I interviewed Will Dale earlier on the Universal Ones podcast on Buddy Dougherty on YouTube. So Will Dale, he's well, actually I interviewed a couple different people, but I think it was Monday we did our interview, and I learned a whole bunch of stuff, as I do usually with every one of these episodes. They're all about learning and teaching and showing the public more information about what we know and what we understand so that we can grow together. So without further ado, I just want to remind everybody, when you're not speaking, to mute your mics. And I'm gonna get into Mikey here. Mikey, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everybody.
How's it going? And to the audience as well.
Hello. Hi.
Good.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Where's your where do you reside? What state are you in?
I'm in Rhode Island right now visiting a friend.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
So we're at the same time zone.
Yeah, I'm in Providence.
Okay. Rhode Island, man, that's a strange place. I don't know if I've ever made it out that far.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So you do Phiral Sound Temples and all sorts of other stuff. I don't want to keep it just to that, but that's what really piqued my interest, and I saw the similarities in the work that I do as an artist myself in your work.
Yeah, I've been exploring just the phi ratio and all the sacred geometry designs I've been working on over the years.
So what got you really interested in sacred geometry and being an artist in general?
So it first started when I was in high school. The crop circle phenomenon really piqued my interest, and I got a compass, and I started like making the designs that I saw in the fields, and then that really got me on the path of sacred geometry.
So it would a little help from the extraterrestrials, would you say? Or is that what you think, that they're homemade? The crop circles are homemade?
No, I feel there's an intelligence behind them from elsewhere.
I like how varying opinions come out about the crop circles. I'm not picking sides, but I have my own hypothesis.
Yeah. I felt like they were like guiding me in a way.
My computer's a dinosaur, so we're just looking at my Facebook, and here we got, wow, that's beautiful. Jeremy Pfeiffer, the world's largest pipe organ, comes back to life. Okay, Phiral Sound Temples, pulling it up.
Here we go.
So crop circles.
Yeah, that was the beginning.
Uh-huh.
And then probably like 7 or so years after that, I was at a music festival and I experienced like my first drum circle. And I had a perforated eardrum at the time. And I ended up having a spontaneous healing through the sound during that
Wow.
experience. And that's what really got me on the path of like sacred geometry and sound, like
It
the
like retuned
combination.
you. It like retuned your eardrum.
It literally, yeah, like healed it. I, my body literally like increased its vibration. I could feel like every cell in my body increasing in vibration, and the atmosphere actually got charged. I could feel like electric raindrops falling on me, and
Wow.
I got onto like child pose. I just put my ear on the earth and started saying thank you, and I literally felt it get pulled out of my ear. And yeah, it was
So
completely healed.
you want to tell us exactly what is a ruptured eardrum for
So
anybody who doesn't know?
I had like cleaned my ear with one of those tips and I went too far in, and I ruptured the eardrum.
Oh, man. That sounds horrible.
Yeah,
So how long were you suffering from your ruptured eardrum?
just a couple days.
Okay.
I was,
Um,
yeah,
so this is a sketch. I'm envisioning your ear in here somewhere. You know, you
yeah,
got
yeah.
chirality everywhere. You got these fractal spirals, and your ear works in that same. What's the spiral mechanism in your ear? What's the name of that again?
The
Yeah,
cochlea or
yeah,
something like that.
cochlea or cholia.
Cochlea.
Yeah,
Okay.
cochlea.
So I'm envisioning, I'm just seeing your ear being healed with some of these drawings
Yeah, right.
as we're talking. Uh, that's really cool. I've had some healing experiences, but nothing like all of a sudden a miraculous healing experience like you speak of. Um, so what year was this?
That was back in like 2000. What is it now? 2008, probably.
Okay. All right. I like to put myself in other people's shoes during their experiences to see where I was too. You
Yeah.
know, like the year, the what was going on, you know. Okay, 2008. Yeah, that was a big year, wasn't it? That was the drop of the economy and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I think that was my Saturn return. I was 27, I think, at the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
ouch. Yeah. No wonder you were retuning.
Yeah.
27. Ooh, I'm gonna have to look at what I was doing when I was 27. All right. That's interesting. So what
It's
other
like
years?
27 to 36 because it's a there's multiple like it's a large.
It's enveloped like this.
So something else that's interesting about this, I mean, aside from I mean, so like an instantaneous healing from sound in your ear, okay, because your ear is the organ that does that. So
Right.
here's things. Okay, so and then but you're also talking about like this vortex of sound that was created by the drum circle that was also impactful to you. Like, I mean, is that how you came upon the phi ratio in it? Or I mean,
Um, so the experience led to another experience. So after the spontaneous healing happened, I like got up and I thanked everybody that was drumming. Like I've never been in a state of gratitude before. Like I was just over the top with gratitude. And I started kind of feeling like a pendulum, and I started spinning around, and I got led to this one spot on the earth, and I could feel like the in streaming energy into the earth in this one spot.
And just uh, for the sake of things, this is Kaliman's work that we're looking at.
Yeah.
What's his first name again? Kaliman.
Gabriel.
Yeah, Gabriel Kleeman.
Yeah.
He's great. We keep going back to his work. He's a somaticist and probably a doctor by now, if not a PhD.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I realized like a lot of the stuff I've been doing is very similar to what he's
same here. And this is what's drawing us.
sketched.
This is what's drawing us together in the crescendo here. I'm really excited for this episode and to finally speak with you in person.
I know we kind of planned on meeting up at Electric Forest years ago and that never happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would have been great. Uh, um, I've never been to Electric Forest, but everything that I do speaks to and of Electric Forest.
Right.
Once I finally have my shop open there, it'll be fun. Uh, so you felt electric rains, a sensation
Oh,
that I felt many times. Continue.
yeah. And so like back to the story, I was feeling like the in-streaming energy. I was there with my brother and some close friends of the family, and I like called them over, and we ended up like just like holding hands around this spot and like spinning around. And there was four of us, and then like a guy walked by and like topped us off like we were a pyramid, you know. And
Nice.
then yeah, like and then that led to me like a year later, I created a dodecahedron, which I brought to the temple, like made out of plywood. And that whole experience like led me to like build that, and like I wanted to like bring it to that festival.
Now is it out of plywood? Is it large? Can you sit inside of it?
Yeah, it
I
was.
thought I seen pictures of you doing it.
I just posted a bunch of images to that one album, and it's in there.
Okay, yeah, I put a link to that album already in our feed here in Skype. Um, do you remember the name of the album? Because I can look at your albums. Here's albums.
It was called
More.
Sacred Geometry and Sound.
You know what? It's going to be easier for me to find it here. So yeah, tell us more about the what dodecahedron?
Yeah, so the dodecahedron, and that was more inspired by Dan Winter's work.
Okay.
I was very curious what sound would be like inside of a dodecahedron. And yeah,
Um,
it was pretty amazing the way that sound would. I had a quartz crystal bowl that I would bring. It would be in the very center, and you could literally feel the sound moving around in a circle inside of it. And the way it like bounced back and forth towards the center off the walls.
was it a device you're talking about? You can feel the sound moving in?
But when you were sitting inside of the dodecahedron and playing the crystal bowl,
Uh-huh.
like because you're moving it in a circle, and so you could feel the sound moving around.
Okay. And your albums. Okay, here we go. Uh, I've been working with dodecahedrons, dude, for like uh only like 2 months maybe, and I love it. It's
Yeah,
phi-based
that's
explorations, this one
no, that's the one above that.
right here.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
probably towards the bottom.
Right here.
Oh yeah, it's that one. That's what it looked like. So you could fit like 4 or 5 people inside. You couldn't stand in
Sweet.
it. One of the sides,
Nice.
one of the sides was open.
Good woodwork. Do you do woodwork?
No, I ended up just buying like a plunge cut saw on a rail system that I could cut at the angle I needed to cut them at. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just that worked out perfect.
Great. Wow. Nice. So is your first one?
That was the first and only one.
Dude, great job. I mean, I would be so drawn to sit inside of there 100%. And I can
Yeah,
see because the entirety of the dodecahedron is phi. I mean, like inside and out everywhere.
right. Yeah, I know.
Uh,
I work with pen like fivefold the most, just because phi is inherent in it so much, you know.
Mm-hmm. So I guess since you're talking about that, uh, I posted this a couple days ago. I was playing with bubble sculpting, and I'm creating these fivefold vortices, uh, the same kind of thing that I don't know if this is gonna play.
Yeah, I wonder if you could do 12. Could you get 12 together?
Yes, indeed, I can get 12 together.
You could do like a dodecahedron cone type thing.
Yeah. Um, I was gonna go to that one, but that video part didn't play. But yeah, you can see the dodecahedron inside here, how it nests, and
Yeah, yeah, perfectly.
Dan Winter himself shows right here how they scale inside of a five-fold prism
I
vortice.
also Okay, so I did build one other thing. I built that too, the five-sided pyramid, a couple of years after.
See, we're drawn to the same exact thing. I didn't even know what I was doing here. This was an accident.
Yeah,
Wait till you see how to make these and how you can make them large scale because I connect them only here. I solder the points out here, then
yeah.
it's open, and then I pinch the whole thing together and put a ring around it.
Oh
And
wow.
that's what's holding it together and keeping the sides perfectly nested.
That's neat.
Um,
Yeah,
so
the
that's
sound
a
in the
little
pyramid was not as good
um
as
when
the
you made the pyramid,
dodecahedron.
how big was your model?
I also just used plywood, so it was like 8 foot. The sections were cut out of an 8 foot piece.
That makes me wonder about all of the cone hats from throughout all of the ages of different uh just in general. There was a lot of different religions of people that wore cone hats, and then
Mm-hmm.
at the very end of all said and done, it's the dunce hat. Go sit in the corner.
Right. Yeah, that's what it ends up as.
The wizard has the pointy hat, the cone hat. Feel free to say some stuff about it, Heather, if you do or no. I know Heather knows about all sorts of stuff with that. But
Oh,
anyway,
I wish I went to
I'm tr-
that place right there last. I went to Thailand last year, and I didn't know about that place in Bangkok.
yeah, I'm trying to add like I recently downloaded a bunch of pictures of ceilings of temples that are amazing, and a lot of them were built as such for acoustics, right? And I have many other ideas of
I,
why they were built this specific way, but I was trying to upload them from my Google Photo, and my computer's like got this weird delay, so I but
oh, okay. Well,
to interrupt.
we'll wait for those to come in because we're going to touch on electric universe architecture and
Okay,
plasma architecture and plasma fields and things like that. So when they come up, that'll be great.
awesome.
Uh,
Just bear with me for just a moment, if you don't mind.
yep. Um, so yeah, that gets us into the sound of these things and the cymatics of these things and what's really happening underneath the water that's creating the surface tension to distribute and show us the geometry that we see in cymatics. And David Schiermeyer does a great job at showing us and putting particulates inside of the water, buoyant particulates, so that we can see these micro vortices and the vortextures of sound and sound vibrations and dissonant and resonant sounds that create chambers inside of water. It's a chambered orchestra. Everything is fluid dynamics. Sound even has fluid dynamics to it.
Yeah, I was so impressed when I first came across his work. Like I had imagined spherical cymatics, like how to do that, like how do you do that?
Edward Kleiman's, or Gabriel
No,
Kleiman's.
David's bubble cymatics. Yeah,
Oh
I
my
was blown away
gosh.
when I first came across that.
Yeah, he really shows stuff that nobody else has shown. Like if you can envision uh, the top of a cymatics from the top right here, a dish, and you're getting a certain fourfold pattern here from a certain vibration frequency. And you're wondering why the top has such a beautiful pattern to it. It's because of these underlying vorticities, this these decorative, ornate, nested, very organic, organelle-like vortexture that's inside of these. So tell us, what is do you know much about the sound inside of your sound temple, or do you just want to build it because you see it?
It's all an exploration for me. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
right. Here it is. Here's part of it completed, right? This is one of
Yeah,
them.
like, yeah, that's based on Dan Winter's Grail Cup animation.
Okay, and that was, I think I just showed, no, this is similar to it, but
Yeah,
Dan Winter.
if you look up his Grail Cup animation, that would show
Okay.
that.
We're going to be interviewing Dan Winter shortly here, so
Oh my gosh, really?
we're working up towards the climax, believe me. Okay. Holy Grail, right?
Grail Cup.
Grail Cup. Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. Yep, I've seen this a bunch of times. And
that does, like, if I put my phone on that, it amplifies the sound pretty good.
okay, to the frequency that they're playing and tuning to it.
Or if I'm just playing, if I put like music on it,
Oh, I
like,
got
just
this
like
here.
put it in there, like the sound is amplified quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a good amplifier. And this is Golden Mean Wave, Golden Mean Corkscrew.
Right.
Yeah, this is so cool because this stuff just keeps literally popping up. As it pops up, I disclose some of it here and there. But it all keeps popping up inside the Dougherty net and the Dougherty network. And then I find it. I see people who have already done similar geometry. Then I hunt them down and I interview them. I back them into a corner and I'm like, tell me about your work.
Oh wow.
I love Dan Winter.
So these are all ceilings that we're seeing right now?
Oh, ceiling. Okay. Heather got her ceiling images in.
Those are really cool.
Ooh. Okay.
There's more, but they're and please excuse the Fortnite ruckus in the background while I do this. They do that, right? But yeah, these are. It would only let me put 10 in, but these are all acoustic ceilings of different temples, and then also like you can read EU all over them, Berkman currents, all kinds of different different acoustics, right? Yeah. And just like you're not familiar with me. My name's Heather, and I have been working on lots of stuff in the electric universe, but I have some ideas about like ancient megalith structures and them using light and sound to collect and use atmospheric energy in a power source communicative international global type of way. So these types of structures that you're talking about, these architectural and also like particular energy, whatever comes in a wave, right? They've been shown throughout history and actually just beautifully executed. And then a lot of these temples too, the actual structures of them are acoustic. So if you like knock on the posts, you can play music in them. So what you're doing leans very heavily toward this, and so you can see the different repetitions and what sounds would be produced by those or other types of EMF and waves, eh?
How it would diffuse the sound or work as a dampening net almost.
Maybe as a dampening net, or also as a collector.
Yeah.
Right? Because so when you're talking about this, In 1998, I went to Colorado and I met this Mayan Aztec medicine woman, and she had these vessels that had been dug out of the ground in Peru, and there was only so many sets of 8 and then 2 sets of 11 of these vessels, and they'd been taken all over the world and like blown up like blown up by the Buddhist monks in Tibet and stuff. And so it was like this amazing experience, and we sat in a circle, and they were a family, these vessels. I can dig pictures out of my computer in a minute of what they look like, because they're in the museum and they don't know what they're for in the museum, and yet we were using them in this way in present day, you know. So you sit in a circle, and they each have like a chimney coming out the top, and it's kind of like blowing across a jug. So one person starts with the grandfather, and then the next person starts, and you just take a very natural breath and blow over the top of the jug, and it makes this very high pitched noise. And as you do this, the next person and the next person and the next person, and it turns into this vorticity of sound. It turns into this like tornado of these very like high pitched ethereal type of sounds. And she said that those were the vibrations. It was like the building vibrations of sound of our personal vibrations, and of those of like the star children, the aliens, however you want to call it, like the others. And you could hear your own sound. It was like a familiar ring that you might get in your ear or something, and you would be able to pick that sound out of the whole whirlwind of all of it. And so I guess the point is that individually these sounds only make that sound, but when collected and produced in that manner, they created something completely different. And each point of it had its own character, and that's what I think that these ceilings were meant to perform.
That is fascinating.
Is that Peruvian whistling vessels? Is that what those are?
I'm not sure the technical name for them. Give me a few minutes, and I'll find a picture of them that I have, and I'll show you them.
Okay.
So this is our community, guys. This is where we are knitting more community, and every person that joins our call is considered family, friends, and definitely welcome to come back on. And I just want to throw that out there, throw the net out there as a collective resonance, because that's how and why these images are created, to both collect and to captivate an audience. Look at these fractal self-similar recursions. It's like these are almost dreams. This geometry is incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I've had many different experiences, and I've seen you tapping on your Mikey. I've seen you tapping on your Phiral Sound Temple on the different octaves and different layers, and how they make different sounds.
Yep.
Using it as a drum and whatnot.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of some of these pictures. So let's get into what this geometry is, why this geometry is, how it is, the who, what, why, and where of the substance of things here. And I find the most substance with sound, a lot, at least anyway, in fluid dynamics. And when you just look at images, right, when you type it up, you start to see plasma-like figures, the same type of structures that we see inside of your geometry, with the spirals, the nesting spirals within the ceilings, with the layers of the stacking of fractals and self-similarity. But there's one particularly that made me think it's like the toroidal fluid dynamics.
The torus is one of the shapes I really just like an ordinary torus. I would love to explore sound. I'm really curious what sound would do inside of a torus.
Well, that's what is really interesting me as well. And I had this recent vision, a very, very vivid vision that made me cry, and I found myself crying for a bubble that didn't make it to the top, or the living enzymes inside the bubble that couldn't make it to the top of the surface and live on. I was like, what the heck? Anyway, my sympathy for certain things is just too deep. I was
You
like,
know,
whoa.
just hearing you say that is so reassuring to me, because honest to God, I swear I spend most of my time wondering if I'm losing my mind.
No, no, being sympathetic, especially with other beings, other if trees, bubbles, being able to okay, I'm all about heightening senses, and this is 100% attributed to the fact that I like growth, and I like dynamic systems and some other stuff. But I like change, and I like a change in my palate, the change in food. This says a lot about a character if you go and you buy the same meal from the same place, or you get something new sometimes here and there, or a lot. It says a lot about a person's dimensionality and their character. But when I get into emotion and I start talking about emotion, um, I mean, you can get windswept by a waterfall, or just the sound of a river, and looking at the surface dynamics, or the vortices and the subvortices of a river. But we often cry to movies or sound or music, but when's the last time you cried to a smell?
I was
You
in
know?
England this summer, and I mean, but this is just me, and it happens frequently. But I'll tell you, like, it was a little bit like that. We wound up walking into this little garden. There's a gardens all over London. Like, they're just placed between buildings. It's absolutely beautiful. And there was this echinacea stand, and I was just like overcome, like nothing else existed except this echinacea stand. There was all these bees, and I just started bawling.
Yes,
Oh yeah, collect yourself. You're in public. Everyone's standing
you're
around
gonna
you.
make me cry. These stories are bringing tears to my eyes already. Oh,
You know,
okay.
I think the thing from my perspective is, if I'm going to tune myself to be sensitive so that I can be aware, so that I can escape my own ignorance, that really I don't get to decide like what it's harder, it's difficult to decide what to tune into and what to not tune into. So basically, if you choose to be sensitive for intellectual reasons, it seems to me logical and certainly experientially true that you would also have to accept the reality of your expanded intellectual consciousness is going to drag along your emotional consciousness, whether you like it or not. And I mean, I'm someone who would be like, I don't need to be crying right now. But on the other hand, I'm like, I need to cry right now. Like those are functions of your body. It's not as if, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that crying is not indicative of a problem. It's indicative of a connection.
A
It's
heal.
And
inducing your environment into your collective self, your collective environment into yourself, and
Yes.
being
Well, and
able
that's
to
there's
react with it,
profundity in a in a
harmonize
sometimes
with
when
echinacea
we
it.
to the
when
extent
something
that it means something
right.
good is happening.
Yeah.
Yes, well, and it's a heal. It's like that like expressive expunging, right? Like squeezing that whatever needs to come out and allowing it to
Yep. And you
exit.
feel better.
You know, exactly. And sometimes like because I have recently been through a spell where like the things that were attached to the thing that was initiating the tears were also needing to like ride out on that wave, and when it starts sometimes it's like this flush and it's like just let it go, just flush that shit, you know, cry about
Yep.
it, cry for your ancestors, cry for your parents, cry for every experience that brought you to that point, and just allow it all to flow through, because everything is attached. And so though it's a crying is a strength and a healing process, and something natural that was given to us as a mechanism for our body to heal our spirit.
Well, if you listen to a song, you can listen to a song 100 times, but as soon as you cry to it, the song never sounds the same after you cry to it, because you build a relationship with it.
True.
And you can, and when you cry to a song or you cry to a movie, it allows you to be part of it. See this sphere? This is one sphere. This is a sphere moving itself. Self-projection, self-enveloping, self-organization, self-similarity. This is a complete holistic representation of moving one position to another position in a vertical motion, one particle or one wave, or one glob, one blob. On the subvertical nesting nature of one wavelength to another, this is most likely some sort of fluid dynamics to the underlying substructure.
Reminds me of jellyfish.
Indeed, and they say that jellyfish are the first animals on Earth.
I thought it was mushrooms.
Mushrooms aren't animals, are they?
Oh yeah, animals. Yeah, of course.
Those look just as much like mushrooms as they do like jellyfish. I think you can be a mushroom or a jellyfish in that shape.
Well,
so we're looking at origin patterns, and we're talking about origin of thought, origin of motion, origin patterns, origin of life. Look at that. And your Phiral Sound Temples that you do, Mikey.
Yeah. And when I have lucid dreams, the way I fly is like a jellyfish, like through the air. Like I'll push down and go up, like with my hands.
Nice. Like Peter Pan.
Around like a jellyfish.
That's cool.
Loop, like bloop, and I go. Peter Pan. I push down and I go up.
You know how many people I hear just that sentence in my dreams when I fly. Not everybody gets to do that. And I am one of those people that can fly too, but I hover. I don't paddle. I don't paddle, and I hover. Anything. I just stand there, and I'm like collectively telling people they can do it too. Every time I'm flying, I look down, and I'm telling people, "Come on, you can do this too." And it must be my like out of body, my higher, what do they call that? Your higher God self or something must be flying and telling me that I can tell other people they can.
Yeah, I feel like I do that when I have flying dreams too. I'm trying to tell all the other people how to do it.
Yes. Yes, we are teachers. We are yoga. What are those people that sit down and meditate and Vedic? Like we have a lot of Vedic sound healing in our blood.
Yeah.
This is what I was looking for. The Rayleigh-Taylor instability. Fluid dynamics.
That's a very true image.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's stunning.
And cylindrical dynamics of sound moving through solenoids is brain fart. I had the name. I knew the name. Forgot it. Solenoidal pressures, I think. The solenoids or sinusoidal waves moving through cylinders. And then you get into Birkeland currents, and you get into how the geometry of Birkeland currents. Look at that. Puddle dynamics. Love it. Excuse me.
Is that a noise you just made with your face? That's awesome.
Indeed.
By the way, that records very well.
I can tap on someone else's head and do it too. So I could go up to someone else and go without tapping my cheek.
Then you say, I'm a teacher.
And I would assume that that same blowing out and doing that same motion with your mouth and your tongue is what creates bubble dynamics underwater. And this is great that we're talking about this because this is knots, helical knots, toroidal knots, sound inside of toroidal knots. When you're underwater and you're screaming, what type of bubble comes out of your mouth? It's not going to be these types of beautiful knots, because it's going to be probably a lot of, like, if you're I mean I don't, the dynamic of this got me thinking, because there's just in general, I have foresight of where the dynamics of the Dougherty set is going, and it's going to bust a bunch of criminals. And there's a lot of people that have died from drowning. So the natural the the natural predictive capacity of going into these networks and seeing these natural accidents or murders happen in real time is going to be really crazy. And not, not a lot of people are going to want to see it. And it reminds me of the movie with Robin Williams, not The Eraser. It's the where he takes memories. Oh, there's a movie with Robin Williams. But I see that that's what's going to happen in the future, that we're going to go inside of currents. We're going to be able to see experientially also, unfortunately, all the bad and good things that have happened in history. And toroidal knots got me thinking, because I was crying about the people that didn't get to make it, and also not only the people that didn't get to make it, but bubbles. And when you watch bubbles, there's something that I call collective capacitance. Like when they're moving, if a bubble's up here, it magically bloops down to here to collectively move towards the bubble. Somehow it has a magnetism. Bubbles have magnetism to attract more air bubbles to itself. And I don't know the word for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, here's a lonely bubble up here, and then it was going to be set free, but then it got enveloped into the rest of the bubble down here. I don't know the name or the dynamics of that, but you guys can kind of see the picture that I'm painting, right?
Are you guys familiar with the archerfish?
No, sir.
No, I guess not.
Okay. Well, we're talking about bubbles. The archerfish is a little more aggressive, but he's from the monotypic family Tyoxidae. They're known for their habit of preying on insects and other small animals by shooting them down with water droplets from their specialized mouths.
Yes.
This is a Wikipedia entry, but the reality is it's a sonic boom that they create, and they film it at high speeds, and there's an electric spark that happens when they shoot this sonic boom out of their mouths, and they stun and kill their prey by shooting water out of their mouth so fast that it causes a sonic boom and a shock, an electrical shock that disables their prey. It's called an archerfish.
Now, do you think, I'm looking at this fish here, we're playing the video, expert archerfish. Do you think that it's necessary? Do you think just from changing, okay, this is what I think, and this is my question. Do you think that just from it spitting and changing and it having to create a bubble of water, if you will, outside of water, the surface dynamics and surface tension, in order for it to escape I would say, for lack of a better term, escape velocity of the water coming outward, the jet, it would have to create a sonic boom in order to pop that bottom off and disconnect that from the water because it's connected so vigorously through surface tension.
Right.
Okay, that was hard to say.
No,
Yeah.
I completely understood though. That's exactly what's going on. And in fact,
then,
I mean, this is. Go ahead.
Do you think in turn is what turns it dielectric? You said current. That in turn is what gives it the current, right? That snapping.
Yes. Well, I think that wouldn't it be like a discharge, right? Because it would like the build up, and then at that point it would just give, you know what I like a discharge.
Like the layers, it would have to be layered, and then like your mouth, or something out. I mean, well, they have gills, and I don't know. It's crazy thinking about.
Yeah, it's a very powerful dispersion of water in the form of the energetic pressure creates an electrical charge in the water.
That's wonderful. That's incredible.
It is. And it's really nature in action. I mean, it's interesting that we have all these great theories and we have these amazing discoveries that we're making, and animals are busy using the tools that we're just discovering.
Yeah,
it's amazing,
dude. The stuff that I learn from nature is way more mind-boggling and blows my mind more every time than almost everything that I hear in public. Nature is what is the teacher. Right here, over and over, we see some of the greatest teachers saying that go study nature. I learned everything that I know from nature. Schauberger, Russell, anyone from IBM, Benoit Mandelbrot. It just goes on and on and on. They're infatuated with nature. This is what I wanted to show last week, since there's a picture here. But we are going to get into the geometry of this in a different separate episode, so I don't want to get too far into it.
Well, last week you said we were going to be talking about sound this week, and I just sent a link. It's just like a bunch of there's a bunch of weird screenshots and then like different stuff of these dynamics and physics and nature, I guess. And
okay.
I don't know if you want to like.
Okay, well, let me wrap up my thought here. So this is from last week. We had filaments nested inside of filaments, and if you think about the spitting of the fish that we just watched, the angler fish, and the magnetic flux surfaces of the ropes, I could see there being some vorticity there that would create it to have that electric charge. Just thinking about it. So we're going to get into the tokamak type of toroidal. We're going to do a whole episode on toroids. All right, I'm back to the images here. Let's see. Okay, is it these sculptures you wanted to show, or
those sculptures 20... are the vessels that vessels, and then there's more ceilings, and then there's this other 5. I got.
All right, I'm going to go to these ones. These photos that you shared here. So we are talking about sound, and I'm working on scheduling an appointment with John Stewart Reed, and this week he was really busy, but he said next week. So that's probably going to be for a personal episode, and we're going to get into a lot of that. Oh, look at this. Yep, Schauberger, Vorticity. You have the counterflow, and what is this? Save photo. Tell me about it. Got it. Leave me alone. Okay. The heavier resistant air path. Yeah, air and fluid dynamics working very similar here. And UFOs.
That's the induction that you were just talking about, the suction, and the induction about like would it switch, would it switch under the pressure?
More Schauberger. And that's what keeps rivers alive. We're also going to do an entire episode on water flow, river dynamics, and and vorticity. Well, almost every episode involves vorticity. You can't really get away from it. It's like the Freemasons. You can't really get away from them. They're everywhere. That was a joke. Come on, guys. Whether it was funny or not, someone's probably going to kill me for it.
I'm laughing on mute.
All right. Yeah, these are waves, nested waves, interference patterns, ley lines. There's a lot to talk about when you start talking about sound and plasma dynamics, and a lot of what I go back to is what I've learned from Dan Winter, and wave embedding, equaling phase conjugation, what all these different things are, which ultimately is gravity, and gravity is the acceleration of charge, according to Dan Winter. And I'm reading down a list of his verbiage, his terms, yes, because I went through a lot of his videos and it's hard to really go through, and I have like my own dictionary now with his words because they're real. They're not just his words. He knows what they are and he uses them correctly.
Yeah.
They're great. And it helped me understand a lot of what I do. And like you were saying too, Mikey, you know, you can say your own words about him.
Yeah, he was like a great teacher of mine. I hope to meet him someday.
Oh, absolutely. Abso-frickin-lutely, without a doubt. I have to meet him. You know, it's one of those people that I have to meet in person. I've made a staff for him directly with a cane topper, antique cane topper. It's great. Certain people have earned their wizard staffs, and I'm a staff maker. I make, that's like one of the things that I do. I don't sell them. I find them, I craft them, and I hunt people down that need them, that have earned their staffing. I'm sure Dan already has a few staffs. Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
The fluid dynamics, the toroidal fluid dynamics in water reminds me of the structure a human body takes when it starts off as a blastiophore.
Yes.
Which is, and it starts growing as a whole neural structure. I'm curious if there's a study for toroidal growth in animals and humans. Because looking at the human brain, it's evident that, you know, that's based on toroidal growth or toroidal movement. Looking at our kidney, other organs, or the blastiophore, yeah, it's evident that we all grow from toroidal fluid dynamics. At least to me, from my study.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, that's what Gabriel Kaliman is really showing us with his work. He is a master, and me being a map maker and a cartographer, I look at his maps and I love them. And there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to teach. And these are more of Kaliman's work. But he gets into showing the face, the dynamics of the face. And I opened one up right here. Mikey Bergman, this is his model here of the face, the human face and the anatomy with vortexture, for lack of a better term, or phirality, chirality.
And we finally see the face of the squatter man. I always wondered what he looked like.
Right?
There he is.
Oh, funky.
Thank you, Mikey. Look at this. Yeah, he's right on point, man. He's designing, working with the architecture of vortexture, you know, and he's pointing us all in the right direction. We're all kind of stumbling towards ecstasy.
I felt like I owed him something, like I had to like do something with his work.
Same here,
like
and I did
make another sculpture right now.
Oh my gosh, Michael, we're gonna own it at the Electric Universe. thing. I'm so excited. Did you get your tickets and everything?
We're gonna have to. I have not yet, but we got to put out a table or something. And
Oh my
I'll be
gosh,
honest with you,
dude. We're gonna take over.
I'm up to 13 of these fucking things. Excuse my language. Of these things now, and I have no idea. My roommate think I'm crazy. I've got sculptures everywhere.
I have big plans, and I'm so excited to do it with you. Yeah, we're gonna give.
Cool.
Michael and I have plans to give out trophies to some of the greatest people that we've ever met on the planet, and we're super stoked.
Yeah.
More gifts.
I can't wait.
Yeah, gifting is the best thing in the world. Anyway, so that's more Dan Winter for you. Giving for receiving, just giving in general. Mikey, you know some things that Dan says about giving, the gift?
Not offhand.
I'm trying to remember, but anyway, Walter Russell, you know, that's what the universe is about, giving for re-giving, not taking. The universe is always giving. It doesn't take anything away. It's always giving collectively, adding to its synergy, its complexity, its layers. So more shouts out to Dan Winter. All right. I see there's probably more.
I don't know if I agree with that. The universe takes. It has to. It's giving and taking. And
But the taking, I think the taking.
Circulating, right?
Well, I just don't think that there's a taking part. I don't think there's stealing. I don't think that taking the zebra's not being taken, it's being induced. Eating is induction.
Giving and receiving?
Giving and receiving. But I don't know. Like there's definitely a two-way cycle. There's always entropy and negentropy to the cycle. And the formative causation of things, as Rupert Sheldrake would say, and the self organization that comes from smaller scale stacking fractality and fractal lattice orders. Everything's fractal lattices. You know, whether we're a grid of consciousness that's moving geometrically or whether we are this living organelle. Well, I talk a lot about imagination and imagination being organelle and our body being organelle, where when you have an imaginary friend that's good for you, that because a lot of people have imaginary friends that are good for them, but you have to realize that that's neither here nor there in the conversation. I got sidetracked. That's for a different time. But imaginary friends and plasma layers and plasma beings and what are these plasma instabilities that we can communicate with that we used to call angels?
Yeah.
You know, I have kind of a little idea there with respect to the idea of giving and taking. I think that's sort of the nature of the universe, that exchange is in the nature of the universe. The intention behind the exchange, I think, is sort of what consciousness is, what quintessential humanity is. The giving and taking, or the giving and receiving, is sort of the action of the universe, but it's the stealing and the donating. I mean, those are intentional things that I think we add to that natural foundation of exchange. And I think that's where it kind of, we get to decide whether or not that exchange is brutal or compassionate. Does that make sense? That's the human part. That's the humanity part. So it's I mean, we look at this cruel, harsh universe that doesn't care about us at all. And I think that we sort of create this sort of intention of the universe. The universe is like the road; it's foundational. How we drive on it makes all the difference, I think.
Absolutely, 99% of 99% of life is how we react to the 1% that happens. 1% of life is happening constantly. And our reaction is our character and who we are, generally speaking. on the general 99% of the time. It's your reaction to what's happening.
The older I get, the more true I believe that to be.
Yeah. I don't know who quoted that. That's an older quote. But I know it wasn't me. There's your squatter, man. Nested dual torus. So I just think of phalanges that are created, like fingers and organelle, like looking at these, not these ones, looking at these. Look at how sound and electromagnetic waves and light nest and create seeds that unfold into larger, complex creatures. Talking with Sandro in the mirror model, which I'm going to pull up right now. We had Sandro on the other day, but we didn't talk about much of his stuff. And this goes right directly back to what Brighton just brought up with the beginning of life and the blastiophores being toroidal and us being a sinusoidal unfolding of a toroidal mechanism, helicoidal toroidal type of pressure and the release of pressure producing all of our organs. And as we get into this mirror model, you'll see that the head is reflective for every other part of our body. Our head is inside of our head encompasses everything, the structures, the bones, the brain. And he shows us this. I'll type it in here if someone wants to talk while I look for it.
A whole lot of this discovery is also occult related and has been based through history. If you start looking at the ancient Sumerians, they based some of their gods on different locations of the body. Or the ancient Egyptians with Osiris was the brainstem. And it's not just a modern realization, but this has been a realization throughout history that our body is made. There are, how do I say it? Similar parts. So part of our body, our brain, can look like a similar growth structure to fallopian tubes.
Yes.
And the reproductive system.
Yeah.
And it's because the body mimics itself in these systems which
Yep.
are most efficient in growth pattern.
Mm-hmm. Yep. If you see it once, you most likely you're going to see it again. And I'm going to get into Peter's infinity model, whether he likes it or not. I say that inside joke later on in the episode here, and show off more for everyone to see about these interior vortices that we're all talking about. This is our show, The Electric View, last year or a couple years ago. This is Sandro, us interviewing him about his mirror model. And he starts off with the brain, like you were just talking about, and there being mirroring shapes of the brain, the bones mirroring different parts of the hips and the spine mirroring different parts and being identical or self-similar to each other, recursions, almost like we could exist without a body and slither with a spine or something, you know. That's a thought that I just had. And that's possibly how we went through Birkeland currents through some sort of fluids, but that's not here or there. The body is only there to protect the brain and the brainstem, but a lot of people think, and I'm starting to think and realize that more and more as I grow and learn. But he's showing here that these mirror each other, and then he gets into the growth of the baby, which really started interesting me. The teeth and the fingernail connection, and because when you have chronic diseases, usually one or two areas affected, multiple syndromes in multiple areas, and we don't know why they're connected. And he's showing the connections through his mirror model, and it's freaking gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous. Let me hide this. And
that's incredible. It reminds me how they say the gut is our second brain.
Yeah.
And you know,
yep, there you go. There's your
studies.
mirroring.
looked into those books like that show how a lot of our brain, like Alzheimer's and whatnot, are caused from issues in the gut first, and it can be
Okay, there it
detected in
is.
the gut before it reaches your brain.
This is what you were talking about, Brighton. I'm sorry. What
Yeah,
I
bingo,
missed what
that's
you
it right there.
Yeah, this is what you were saying right here. That
And if you look at that, the curvature of the blue structure right there, it's the exact same structure that our body grows into, almost like a seahorse-like structure
Yep,
when
yep.
we're still
Fetus.
inside the womb,
Mm-hmm.
inside the egg.
Yep. I'm obsessed with drawing that picture and that image, just drawing fetuses, and I don't know why. Just I grow with affinities. If I'm attracted, if there's an affinity for something, I'm gonna chase it down. Why do I have an affinity for pine trees and pine cones right now? Hunting it down until I get to the bottom of this. Why do I have an affinity for this type of flower? There's a reason for it. There's a reason that purple stands out more on a Wednesday in some random month that I don't know. There's just reasons why things stand out, and these are signs and symbols from the Creator. That if we're perceptive enough to be in tune to
You
these,
amaze me, buddy. You amaze me. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I can't tell you how many times you're talking, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody else thinks like that. The experience I have whenever I interact with you is really profound in that very specific way.
I missed you, Michael, last week. I missed
I'm
you.
so sorry. I regret not being there. But that it just I'm so sorry to interrupt the flow because I know you're in the middle of something and I try hard not to do that, but I'm just bubbling over with joy the idea that
Yeah.
I'm not alone. I mean that you know, I'm proud to be like you because I think you're so fucking weird and I think, well, if he is weird and I relate to him, then I have obviously got to be weird. And that is and you know, and that's a source of pride for me.
Fuck yeah. I got another one for the weird card. Yes. All right.
Does
So
anybody else see how that's a brain?
yeah, you got the endometrium, endometric. I can't pronounce that.
It's like there's a whole skull surrounding the brain system right there, and it's the same toroidal fluid dynamics, whether it's our brain or it's the embryo.
Yep, and this is what See the Pattern is showing on his channel. This is what the geometric view is all about. Brighton, I would love to do an episode with you on the Brighton Buddy Show, or just an episode on here about these mushroom types of portabella-esque shapes, because they're so recurrent in the fundamentals of how nature begins. The beginning, the firstlings of nature, like what you mentioned before, the what are they? Jellyfish, the jellyfish, the brain. Now wait till you see the next image, okay? And we have all rights to play on any of these Electric View episodes that are great, that are like going on 3 years now. So we can play these out and talk about these episodes as well. Wait till you see this next image that I showed. Boom. What's that?
Oh, there's beetles.
Nope.
Is that the skull?
Read the top. Recurrent CME-like eruptions.
Yeah.
Coronal mass ejection is the same motherfucking shape. Yep.
Goosebumps.
Oh, that one really does look like a beetle.
Beautiful.
This is coming off of the sun.
Absolutely,
this is what the eruptions look like coming off of the sun.
It looks like an MRI scan of someone's head.
Yeah?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, it really does.
So wait till he opens up here and gets a little bit more into how these unfold. And this is what sono-biology is, ultimately, Brighton. How life starts out from a geometric set like the Dougherty set and unfolds into filaments and then rewinds into unwinded Birkeland currents as trees that are glass, 3D printed, that Heather brought up, and through geotropism and phototropism. Where is this going? Is this a? Oh, this is another episode. So anyway, these currents that come off the sun, they come back and they turn into these helical filaments. Birkeland currents start out here, by the way, and memories are most likely to occur and be bound at the beginning of a cycle of an event. So maybe there's a lot of memory, and maybe the memory of the whole solar system is right out here where Birkeland currents start at the precipice off of the sun. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, this is sono-biology. Sun and light, sound turning into the expression of biology.
What do you conceive memory to be made out of?
Layers and layers and layers of cyclical vortexture that we're showing off in this episode. And that's what creates the dynamism of each individual, because there's nothing but uniqueness, and there's no set that shows everything on uniqueness at all scales, except for the recursion that I know of the inverse square and the inverse cube law. And that's how light and sound and gravitics and anti-gravitics and gravity and life fall off of as a cascade from a source star. That was a mouthful. I need to give Mikey the platform. All right. So we got more into this in this episode. We got more into blastiophores and how the shape ultimately turns into, guess what the mirror of the heart is? Because there's a mirror of everything in the body. According to his model, the mirror of the heart is the eyes and the eye.
Oh.
Love is watching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and right there with your perception and your perceptive observations last episode, Brighton, how you set up the universe as the observer and really kind of stellated it between the observer and the observed at the same time inside of a crystalline lattice. I thought that was really awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Still working on that one. It's a hell of a mind twist.
Yeah, great.
Trying to raise the universal observer in dimensions.
Yeah,
thinking of dimensions as the actual consciousness rather than the beings in the dimension. It's been a little trip.
So I'm gonna go to anybody feel free to talk while I look this up. We can talk about Mikey, feel free to talk about some of your shapes or what happened after your visions. Did you have a God experience? Do you call it reaching source? Is it an out-of-body experience?
Have you put any of these Phiral Sound Temples in hexagonal tilings or done any space-filling tilings with them?
No, I haven't done that.
Would you be interested in working together? Because
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, why not?
All right. What program do you use to draft all your models?
So to do the 2D designs, I use GeoGebra.
Okay.
And I just use Blender to do the 3D stuff.
Okay. They're absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm using SketchUp, so I'm sure there could be a conversion of the files. But if you're interested, I can take your works and put them in uniform tiling, like third-dimensional uniform tilings. Structures like the flower of life, but in the third dimension.
Yeah.
And then show where the holes meet up of these dynamical toroidal components.
Yeah, I'm definitely down to collaborate.
All right.
That sounds great. I love this episode. I mean, I love this show and shows like this because there's so much collaboration. And to see and feel and be appreciative of all the waves of everybody growing, it just blows my mind. Everybody's doing their own thing and growing and starting their own podcasts. And there's so much media out there that you can consume that's good and positive for you. Oh, I love the time
It's
that we're in right
overwhelming.
now. Yeah, I love the time that
I
we're
have
in right now.
I have a question. When you guys, when you're familiar with the sand experiments where they send a tone through a metal sheet and it creates the sort of the cymatic shapes and such, and different tones, resonant tones create different shapes.
Yes,
It's a
cladding
it's
patterns.
Yeah, it's a one-dimensional image of what's occurring. Are you able to imagine those same images in 3 dimension? And is there a way, I wonder, that
That's
we
what
could create?
The bubble cymatics is the closest anybody's getting to that, right?
Is it? I'm wondering how. Is there
Yeah,
what's the distance between those two things?
David is probably some of the most beautiful images that I've seen. He's a somaticist, just electrical artist. And we talked about that a little bit on the episode a little bit earlier, the subsurface vortexture and vortical movements, because we see that planets are most likely sculpted by hypersonic vortexture, vortical winds that are nested within vortical winds. There's the red spot on Jupiter that we see, and that's a huge. We saw that it gets smaller and bigger. Now, guess what I did this morning? I put creamer in my sugar. It was already stirring. And guess what I saw in the center? I saw uh, um, a heterodyning or a hemorrhaging Birkeland current expanding and contracting because of the kinks and kink instability, because of the winding and the tightening and the binding of it. That is because of subsurface vortical networks. If I were to stir the coffee, this also being a Birkeland current, or longitudinal waves or scalar waves, this could be represented as or force-free field-aligned current. When you stir your coffee, you get these, and a bunch of them nest, and they undulate in and out, like I just said, and it was so cool to see it. And I was gonna do a video for it, but I'll do that another day. So look at this right here, the trees, like we were talking about, having counter rotating uh, uh, helical components to it. And I'm getting into Peter's infinity theory, because you can see how he names them. These, for lack of a better term, he goes in and names all of this, the stuff that's happening that we all want to know more about. And you can keep going and going and going and going. And his models keep explaining more and more. He's great. We had him on a few of the shows. You can find him on some of the older Electric View episodes. But he claimed he didn't know that any of it was being recorded, even though we all knew that they were shows already. It was an internet show. So anyway, he decided to dial off, and go his directions. But look, dude, boom, he names every single one of these. This is what we're talking about. You got the atomic bomb, you got mushrooms, you got the beginning of self-organization, self-similar loops and nesting dynamics, and you get another iconic thing in the plasma universe and electric universe is double layering, which these are not Langmuir currents. This is a ring current, but it creates forget the name, but it's a good name.
Buddy, to move on here real quick with you.
Oh, dude, hit it, man. Open it up.
I sent a link that I meant to bring up the other day. A group at MIT did a experiment on why the coffee cream, and I sent a link in our we'll see it in our Skype thread, why coffee cream actually floats on top of your coffee for a little bit.
Mhm.
And so they put microscopic particles inside of the cream, and then did a high-speed camera to actually show the fluid dynamics of these two.
Yes.
And
Thank you for reminding us of this.
Sure. This is a profound key to my work, and this is an underpinning to all this as well.
Mhm.
But what I found fascinating about this was not only the ultimate answer that it's the thermodynamic coalescence between the two bodies of water, meaning that the creamer is a little bit cold, your coffee is warm. And so what happens is there's a toroidal field that
Because the
undulates
temperature
between
difference.
both bodies,
Because
actually
the temperature difference.
homogenizing the energy, and it would fit the Dougherty set as well.
Yeah.
Energy homogenization. The degree to which that energy gets dispersed and homogenizes is the degree to which coalescence happens. And it will undulate back into their smaller bodies, and then restart the whole cycle of this thermodynamic. Watch this. This right here, what blew me away by this was not only what everything's happening, which is gorgeous and beautiful, but watch this. It'll pop and it'll move into a smaller sphere.
Yeah, what's the harmonics
ratio?
between the ratio between those? You know what I mean? I thought that
Check the
exact
living
same
duality
thing
set.
when I saw this.
Check the living duality set. It is the
Yep.
exact
Yep.
the exact ratio between the spheres that collapse.
Same with the rippling of water
Nice.
too.
And there's
Yeah.
a reason to that, because of what you're talking about, the turgor pressure between the inside and the outside, the differential fields between and Brighton, this fits what you're talking about, space compacting and sphere packing.
Yes, the dimensions of compactness.
Yeah, exactly.
Between the honeycombs.
Between the honeycombs.
These spheres is exactly like, I'd be really interested in seeing the numbers on the difference of the spheres in size as they shrunk.
Totally. There's an important piece on here that space and form interact together, and there's an important balance between both the space and the form. We have a 45-degree chiral shift between the layers for a specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't have that, all of space would just collapse unto itself. There wouldn't be that pressure between self and other, inside and outside, that could hold the actual form there. It would all just be circle within circle within circle within circle within circle to infinity.
Which, if I might add,
please,
your duality set it's the square within the square, the cube within the cube, and we went over it earlier this week. I had Brandt. This is Brandt Hindman, right? Or
Hindman. Me, Brandt, Omashaw.
Yeah.
Howdy.
So this is Brandt. Brandt's awesome, a friend of Brighton and mine now. Collectively, we all had whatever. I'm friends with the whole universe. I don't care if we just met, but whatever. In general, Brandt shows the same thing that's happening inside the Dougherty set, and it's the dual layers. And Walter Russell referred to all of this as heat dissipating into cold, and cold dissipating into heat, and that's what everything's made of in the entire universe. And if you think about the dynamics of that, that's what creates the torsion and the torque and toroidal dynamics of all systems. So you can think
these ideas interface with Pollock's work, buddy.
Within
Jackson
what?
Pollock.
Exactly.
Well, that's actually a really cool thing. It is difficult.
I'll show you in a minute.
Chaos theory, and
no. We weren't talking about Jackson Pollock.
Oh, we weren't. Okay.
No, it was a joke. We were talking about Gerald Pollack, a different gentleman. Do you know who he is?
I don't actually. I know. Yeah.
But I interrupted you. We'll get to Gerald Pollack and the dynamics of water.
Well, now I want to
in a
know how
minute.
it relates to Jackson Pollock.
Okay. Well,
Can I just?
Oh.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
Jackson
Heather.
Pollock because of crystallographic balance, but something also that's very interesting about this 45-degree angle is we were talking previously in at a different time about, like, remember the 4-post structure as opposed to the 6-post structure where the hexagon allowed for the movement
Okay,
of
that's
the
it. I'm
next
pulling it up.
angle over. And this is really interesting too because I have ideas about a specific alphabet where there's different sets where it's like a oblique angle, right?
Okay.
And that oblique angle is at a 45-degree, which is so I'm really interested in what you're describing here because it lends itself in other ways to the description I believe this alphabet is describing. But remember when we were talking about that in those 4 posts, and then the 6 post allowed the hexagonal allowed the other current to move, and then an 8 would allow it to move in a different angle even still.
Yes.
So this 45 degrees is like just super intriguing now.
Yep. And the way Brent lays it out very beautifully and poetic with I guess I would say a touch of Eastern mysticism to it. So I will let Brant continue laying out what he's talking about here, and with the 45 degrees, and there's other degrees between angles, and then we'll get into Maxwell's form of the ether, because he laid it out, and then we'll get into so I have a little plan here. So
Okay.
hop on it, please, Brant. Tell us a little bit more about that 45-degree angle and the surface tension or dynamics that you were talking about.
Do you have the video you sent me, Brant, where you put the particle in the flexahedron and put it on water?
Oh.
Yeah, because that's exactly what I'm saying with this.
Well, how about you guys work? You could work on getting some content together, and we could go back to this in a little bit.
Sure. Let
Okay.
me just share this one piece right here.
Please.
I see spheres as representing form, and vectors as representing space. And in trying to arrive at a basic shorthand to describe math and physics and spiritual understanding, the integration points, tried to arrive at a very simple codex that happened to be geometric. If you take a cube and you try to represent or model out what the corners inside the cube are, which is that right there. Yeah, that's 4 cubes actually put on a plane. It's actually the diagonal between the corners of the cube ends up being just a beautiful koan. It's really difficult mathematically to get those two there. Thank you, Brighton, for the help earlier this week in helping to get it modeled, and spent a long time actually figuring out the mathematics. But if you, from corner to corner inside of a cube, I see those vectors as actually holding a representation of space itself, not form, but space. So the empty part inside of a cube is represented by an X pattern in the middle of the cube.
I know some of the other videos I sent have the cube in relation to that rotating flexahedron, so you can begin to see where the flexahedron is in relation to the cube.
Great job modeling that, Brighton.
Yeah, thank you.
It was beautiful. It looked like those fortune tellers that used to make an element. I'm not to like belittle it at all. It's actually absolutely amazing. Sure. But you know those like fortune tellers that you would, those origami ones that were like a little square, and you'd be like pick a side, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then count, and then flip the lid on the inside.
That's what everyone says. You know, totally.
It's amazing.
Totally, Heather. I remember. Yeah.
And now you can.
I remember it well.
And
Now
this
you
actually
can-
originated from the movie A Ripple in Time. I watch a lot of media, and it's a children's toy. And I saw this kid playing with this thing, and I'm like, holy shit, that actually fits how the various layers of the living duality set unfurl or genuflex, move between this layer and that layer. And now we
So-
start getting into the sono-biology between the
Yeah.
cell and the organ, and how those layers
Morphologies.
unfurl should fit this pattern.
Yeah,
Well, and
this is
also-
it's morphological. You start to get into morphologies, how you get from one shape to the next, movement, allowing movement and dynamism inside of the set.
Yeah, and allowing the two-dimensional plane to become the three-dimensional form, right? Each layer of the plane then gets to become the three-dimensional form, and then you can actually unfold that whole form back into a two-dimensional piece.
I would agree. And you brought up this thing about the cube and the hexagon. The hexagon is actually just the view of the cube from the corner. So I sent this image, the red, white, and blue image, just at 11:34. That's just a corner view of cubes.
A term for viewing the cube at
This view.
its corner apice is isometric projection.
Thank you.
Okay.
It means
well,
that you're
I like-
turning the cube 45 degrees and then you're turning it 22.79 degrees. Isometric projection.
And
Perfect.
that's what's insinuated with the bottom of Saturn, right? Where they talk about the cube being.
So this is isometric projection, and that's why they insinuate the hexagonal, like Heather just said, the hexagon on top of Saturn, right?
Yeah, the hexagon on top of Saturn would be a polar view, which would be
This
Yeah.
view? This is a polar view?
well, when we're talking in relation to a
ortho-
sphere, it would be a direct top view. So if you're looking at the sphere as if it was a cube, that would actually be a projection that would show squares instead of hexagons.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's confirmation that it's a legitimate hexagon and not a square, actually, and movement.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
don't know.
one defines another in terms of
Yeah,
talking
I
about
think
This-
they're nested
they're different dimensions or different perspectives of
or
dimensions.
views. Yeah.
This
It's like
triangle right here.
parallax. If you know what parallax is, it's a
Well, yeah,
different
but I
view.
guess what I'm saying is that if you were looking down on a shape, like
Oh.
let's go back to two-dimensional form, right? Spread the circle and spread the sphere into a circle, and at the very center of it, it's hexagonal, as opposed to square or cubic. So if we were looking at it dead on, that would give the true shape, as opposed to looking at it from a side angle, which would insinuate different shapes.
Which turns into a cuboctahedron.
Right. So it would be, if we're looking at it from a polar perspective, from a dead-on, straight-up polar perspective, and it's hexagonal, and there's current moving around it, it isn't stable, those would both be indicators that the true shape is hexagonal and not cubic.
Okay.
Oh.
Can I?
Yeah.
I'm going to take this moment to bring
Go
this
for it.
up because Heather just beautifully painted us into this moment. This is Maxwell's ether model. Okay. What's Maxwell's first name again? Clark Maxwell? Okay. Clark Maxwell. Luminiferous ether or ether, luminiferous meaning light-bearing, was the postulated medium for the propagation of light. This is what we used to believe before, when plasma physics was around and plasma physicists gave us electricity. Then the electricians hijacked it and hid the model and told us that it was electricity and not plasma or ether. So that's what happened. So it was invoked to explain the ability of the apparently wave-based light to propagate through empty space, something that waves should not be able to do. Now let me get into what it looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like. Talk about your honeycombs. Talk about Okay, now this I'm gonna say this is what I think. I think that consciousness is not electric, it is geometric, and this is the model and the modality for it. And this is charge and charge separation. When charge and charge separation occur on a cellular level, on an atomic level with water, and also on a macro or a micro level, that's what incurs memory into the bank of the akasha or the akashic. So like it is a geometric construct, and it is layer by layer, and this is, I think, the neural plasticity or neural geometry of the universe. The individual pixels, the pixelations between we needed a propagator to make it look like things were either moving or for things to actually move, and that is charge and charge separation. And when charge and charge separation occurs, it creates everything, and everything occurs out of it, and it makes sense to me. But charge and charge separation is electric in nature, so that's to say similarly that the akashic is electric, or the whole universe thinks electrically, and there's the magnetic electric grid that you could go in. It's still geometric, and it still has structure to it. So these are the different types of lattices that we were talking about just now. And I wanted to bring that up because we kept hopping back and forth between the hexagon and the cube face center and the cube field, and different fields like that.
Buddy, I actually just sent that video. If you want to pull up, it might fit what you're talking about. Okay. The very bottom one, actually. This is just floating. Metaphoric, artistic across the board, because it's floating on water. It's emptiness. It's made out of tubes. It's glass.
With the video with the coffee, it looks like exactly the same mechanic.
I like that video that you sent me where it's rotating in the field. Brant, you sent me a video where it's rotating and it stops, and it rotates and it stops and it rotates. That's a really good video.
Oh, okay. Let me just send that one. That's the actual.
Yeah.
We're good to go back on. Okay. All right. So we'll start the show again. So anything you want to say again, or wherever we were at? Where do you guys want to pick up at? Because I don't know where you guys went.
Well,
did you want to share your screen, Brighton, and say something?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
I'll share a concept. Maybe it's something we could talk about.
Because I got lost talking, and then I was like, guys. I got here and I started talking about this stuff, and I was like, ooh.
I tried to get everybody to gossip about you while you were gone, but nobody would do it.
He was stirring the pot.
They told me you've already told all your deepest, darkest secrets without being having to ask. So, good job being transparent. You're immune to gossip, buddy.
I like when people talk about bad crap. Just kidding. I love a good word, and I don't care what people say about words. I'm kidding. Wait, I don't know what I should say about that. Let's just not gossip. You pot stirrer.
Actually, no. You spoke true there. That you and Brighton both love good words, and you are wordsmiths and students of what specific words point to. In the idea that I love that Lao Tzu once said that which is said to be the Tao is not the Tao, and then proceeded to write the Tao Te Ching. So I mean, he knew the joke about to say something is not actually true because you put words to it and you miss it, and yet you have to try to put words to it. And I'm really appreciative of you guys of how
Profound.
find your language is for the concepts and how specific and right on the concepts are with aligning language. So
That's why I seen him and I'm like, we got to do a show together. The Brighton Buddy Show. You'll find us on YouTube. You know that though, Brant. Brant's part of the family, man.
That's right. I got my hat this time. So next time we talk, I got my my cadet hat.
All right. That's an inside joke too, guys. Everyone needs a hat.
Gryffindor.
Neutral monism. That must be Brighton sharing his screen, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. That is awesome because that fits what Heather was just talking about the cube and the hexagon, and the different perspectives. I have not seen that symbol for neutral monism before. And that's a 45-degree angle view, or the isometric view of a sphere. And so you're getting the splitting off of the different dimensions of the cube. And there should also be a cube, you know, around there, because I try to put everything in a box.
Well, it's interesting too because it puts it in 3, right?
Yeah.
It puts it in 3, so then the 3 produces the 6 at the 45-degree angle.
Exactly.
And then there's the 9. 45.
Exactly. This past week, I'm a student of the 0, 1, 2, and 3. And there's very, like, 0 and 1 are dualism, you know. 1 and 2 is actually that replication of moving from one to self and other, that dualism. 0 and 1 is everything and nothing. And then 3 is the Trinity, how one conversation is being had between two. And so I've oftentimes stopped there. But it's been this past week, and Brighton, this is in your question, this is in your studies, because of your study of the subatomic particles and the shape of the tetrahedron that has 10 neutrinos in it. It points to the 1, the 3, and the 6 actually being the secret of the 3, the 6, the 9. And this happens to be the cube and the octahedron, and that same isometric view of the cube, which translates this thing that looks like a cube into a hexagon. And so it's a dimensional translation.
Right, morphing honeycombs, where you can take a tetrahedron and morph it into a cube, morph it into any other form. Yes. And whole grids of a structure can morph into other forms. Like, here's one that starts with only cuboctahedrons, and it's called the cuboctahedral honeycomb, and it starts to morph into another honeycomb and into another honeycomb. Actually, it becomes the truncated tetraoctahedral, which it almost is now, and then the truncated, and then the tetraoctahedral, which is known as the Flower of Life 64 tetrahedron grid.
And that's where it hits the 12, because that would be like a extension onto the next layer of the spiral, right? And then the 1 and 2 is the 3. So you're like becoming that, because I've been working with numerology and angles in relation to astrology and why they would pick this out, and it turns into a vortex structure when you start playing with the math and the angles and the multiplying them by themselves, and it turns into a shape.
What in particular turns into a shape? A vortex structure?
Right, and could I get the screen back?
Yeah, absolutely.
The zodiac, if you do like into a 3, 6, 9, and what each of them winds up, it winds up multiplying itself exponentially into an increasing circumference of a spiral that goes back down into itself. It becomes really interesting when you think about like what each sign represents and why it's represented that way, and then how the symbol is drawn. And so I started working with that, like, why is this way? What are they actually trying to describe here? What's actually the physicality of what's going on? And as descriptions, like as if they were regular symbols we would use for like washing our clothes or whatever. Like, what would that say? And then why are these numbers attached to specific things, and how does that work out? And it turns it, when working with it in this manner, it, like, take out regular like what we view as math and look at it as numerology in the way that a person of previous mindset would be looking at these numbers, because that's how they would build it. They wouldn't be building it the way we build it with our sensibilities. They would be building it with theirs. And then how does that translate into an actual form and function, and why would they assign these things this way? So that's what that whole section of work is about, but it does wind up exceeding itself at the point of 9 in a manner that would be like the extension of the next layer, and the 1 and the 2 become 3, and it becomes the next spiral.
That's
yes, that's all it's needed. You don't need it. It's modal in that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the nodes like are magnanimous or magnetic, and they draw all the in-between energy into points, like bubbles draw the rest of the oxygen into the bubble, or like attracts like, any like atom will draw any like atom towards it, and that's when charge and charge separation occur as they attach. So the greater collective and the chemistry of things, really the geometry of the chemistry of things really has me blown away too. And the 1, the 2, and the 3 could be thought of here as the microcyclic, the mesocyclic, and the microcyclic. If I said micro first, macro I meant.
Now, let me ask about those words. Are you talking about the cycles within the microcosm, the cycles between the microcosm and the macrocosm, and then the cycles of the larger macrocosm?
Indeed. And that's
yes, I'd agree.
Yeah, and this is the infinity ring that Peter here draws, and this is what we keep talking about. And it's like organic, you know what I mean? These double layers happen naturally because of the Lorentz force. The Lorentz force pushes them into these double layered Birkeland currents. And this is a model of his that shows those 3 as you got right here: micro, meso, and macro. The macro scale, anything that is astronomically large; mesocycle, anything between mesocyclic and microcyclic; and microcyclic, anything too small to be seen with the naked eye. And from there on, he goes on to show a couple other things here. I just like to highlight everybody else's work and explain it alongside my work and their work at the same time. So, and this all goes back and from the ideas of Mikey Bergman in here and his art, and these 3D printed stacking umbilical nested chamber like creatures, these crustacean like creatures.
Yeah, I haven't
or
3D
shells.
printed that one yet.
I hear people sharing stuff, and I have a lot of different directions to take it. Like, we could go to beamforming, horns. Animals create horns, and horns are based off of similar type of stacking and nesting. And let me go to the chat here. There's helical knots. There's underwater bubbles we covered. A little bit of fluid dynamics. This is a quote from Robert Jackson. All is cymatics. Magnetospheres are cymatic sonospheres. A cymaglyph surrounds everything. And I love Robert Jackson and his quotes. And I'm going to go to an image that I created just for this show, with the Dougherty set or the Dougherty network right here as the cop sirens go off. Thanks, Heather. That was great.
Yeah. Like I saw this like this article or this meme, and it was like sometimes you meet that person that, or you see that person and your heart starts racing and you
Is there
start sweating.
are
And
the
it's the
are the
cops.
police yelling outside your house? I hear yelling. Are you guys okay?
I'm always waiting for that knock at the door, you know, with the men in black, you know, be like, all right, you need to come with us at this point.
Right when I pull up my image, the cop siren goes off and the screen goes blank, right, guys? Okay, so anyway, so this is just
Step away
natural.
from the sacred geometry.
Yeah.
These are just natural filaments of progressive dyadic or two-adic numbers. They increase by quaternion fold. So 2, 4, 6, 8, or sorry, 2, 4, it goes 1, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and it doubles from there. And these are double nesting cascading filaments. And this is part of a picture. I've rearranged it for this show, but part of a picture that's at the Russell Museum right now in Virginia, in Swannanoa, or not in Swannanoa, but in Waynesboro. But I wanted to show the similarities of Mikey's work in what are they called? Phiral temples, because these are all golden mean filaments. From here to here to here is the golden mean. From this center to this center to this center is golden mean. Not only that, but when you take the golden mean and you nest it across and you pinch it slowly across the center and you come across and you invert it back the other way, it shows the entire thing is all phase conjugate. And phase conjugation is nested golden ratio, golden mean waves. And that's what the whole structure is, right, Mikey?
Yeah, yes, all goes by that proportion.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't believe how many people I posted that a lot of the sacred geometry forums, and so many people like mentioned how it looked like a pile of poop.
Yes. Yeah.
Poop?
Yeah.
I mean, gravity and mass work. Like, you know, it actually looked like the same droplets in that MIT video as well, like the exact ratios, and we're talking about how matter condenses and from liquid. So yeah.
Yeah, this is actual phase transition from wave to wave, the dynamics of laminar coherence. So you have different spin densities in every single one of these. Every one of these is different spin density, which is your laminar coherence, which produces constructive charge interference. And constructive charge interference is life. And that's why when it comes out of the sun and comes back to the earth after so many different cycles, it grows life. It grows life out of the cycles. The cycles are the self-organization. Someone asked me earlier what I thought Rupert Sheldrake's idea of morphogenetic resonance is. It's this. This is the geometry of morphic resonance. And you stack them, and eventually you get characters, you get beings, you get sounds, you get oscillations, suboctaves. So you get fractal fields, which are phase conjugate dielectric. It's all a phase conjugate dielectric. Fractality is the source of gravity. All of this is fractality because it nests inside of each other. It is what Dan Winter says, perfect compression. I shy away from the word perfect, even though I know it's all perfect. Otherwise, we wouldn't be existing in the cinema right now. And we know that because of Euler's number. We know that because of the Feigenbaum's constant. We know that because of so many other different constants. Just the fact that the golden mean is somewhere inherent in nature shows that there's structure to it. There was a huge purge in academia of people who were against the idea of a design, there being a design. They didn't want coherence to the design. They didn't want coherence to the structure. Academia, whoever rules, wanted us to believe in chaos and a chaotic system that starts, which leads to hedonism. Your higher self and your higher belief system in your cosmic understandings is what builds your umwelt, your worldview of your everyday life. You become a hedon because your higher self is a hedon, because you think these hedonistic thoughts and nothing matters, or we're taught to think that it's all chaotic and a Darwinian type of materialistic view. But there's a lot more order to the dynamic, and we see this every single day being proven in the electric universe, the electric paradigm, the geometric view, the geometric understandings. And you can see right here the relation between the works and the similarities and the nested chambers and shells. And I like to get into biomimicry, and I like to invert things so we get a view of it here with inverted colors, because you see differently. You see things differently when it's inverted. So I invert a lot of my art because it highlights
I like
different
that.
things.
That's brilliant.
Thank you, guys. And each one of these are broken down, and I make these maps specifically for this show every week, and it's ultimately going to be books upon books, because I have hundreds of thousands of different images explaining the dynamics of this. And Schauberger lovers, feast your eyes out, because this is just the beginning. I have hundreds of thousands of images showing why and how the central nodes interact, the nodal lines, the overlapping ley lines, interference lines, have to do with sound, have to do with constructive interference patterns, which build beings, or destructive interference patterns, which build structure, and plasmoids. This is all plasmoids and plasma physics too. And plasma dynamics, ultimately, this is the rheology of plasma flow, how energy flows, the rheometry, the flow geometry of what you were talking about, Brant, with turning, you and Brighton, turning structure, the morphologies from one shape to another. This is infinite morphologies of all structures and shapes, and that's why shells and everything that is in the ocean starts to mirror these Edenic shapes.
Hey, wanted to bring something up that you talked about a second ago, hedonism as a corollary of believing in chaos.
Well,
we touched on this in our show
not chaos in general. Sorry to interrupt you. I need to rebuttal that, and not just chaos in general, but more of a destructive type of because chaos is beautiful if you study it. It's fractal, and it breaks down to fractality and simplicity. But I guess the more of the views of it's meaningless, everything came together because of nothing kind of view. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
No, and we touched on this in our show last week, and I wanted to kind of even myself clarify something. I am a proponent for allowing ourselves to be as we are, and there's a reason for that. And I wanted to, and it pointed to a little bit like the idea of hedonism, but it's actually that the pendulum swings. And the pendulum swings because there's a fulcrum point, and you can trust that you can trust the organization of the universe to allow the pendulum to swing. And so if you go out too far, you feel the pressure forces bringing you back to center at all times, if you're aware. And so I just wanted to touch on that, like in being able to trust the natural order and organization behind the scenes. I posted earlier, what's perceived as chaos on one level is order on another level. Quote from Alan Watts. That if things are going
That's
bad
very
in our
reassuring.
lives, it is, it is, and Indians say, Jamaicans say it's all good. Indians say, to tie a mipe and rye. That you can trust the
Hakuna
flow
Matata.
of things. Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. Sing the song now.
Well, that could be what built those '90s children, though. Hakuna Matata.
What a wonderful phrase.
Oh. So I mean I'm looking at my list here. We're literally doing the geometry of sound and Phiral Temples. It it's it does nothing for anyone unless they have a golden ratio caliper in their hand and they're measuring these for themselves.
Hmm.
I will tell you the astronomical difference between not having a golden sensor and having a golden sensor. We now have golden sensors at loveiswatching.com. No, I'm kidding. I'm not offering it to the public. You can find them. You can make them. They're cheap. They're not cheap. I mean, I spent $109 on mine like 14 years ago. It was a dentist tool. You couldn't find them online. This was before YouTube and before Facebook. So, and then I redesigned it. I reverse engineered it. I scanned it into every part, and then I actually found a blueprint for one online, and then I just printed them out on a 3D laser into acrylic, and then hand riveted them myself.
Buddy, we should talk. I've got a 3D printer up and rolling. We could build that fairly easily if you want to work on that a little bit more. I would love one in my life. I'm sure they're on Thingiverse,
Dude.
But yeah.
Oh, heck yeah. Especially if you have different sets, like all the different Dougherty sets that I created now. There's so much more I've never found. There's so much more in the Dougherty set that I haven't found or discovered, and I keep referring back to that because there's so much that's already come out of it. It's an endless well for more information, and it's the inspiration for this show. And I don't want to sound completely megalomaniacal or egotistical when I keep referring to the Dougherty sets. I really just want to show that the information's there and it's accessible to everybody. And that's how I get it. And I see it out in the world, and then I relate to it and I show, like I said at the beginning of the show, I find people that have created things like it, and then I interview them, and I'm like, how did this person discover their, and like Brant, your set's so similar, and you have so many different things that I don't know about it, and so does Brighton, and so do I, about the set that other people don't know. There's so much more perspectives to view when you shift the cube or the square from one point and one perspective to the next.
This really points to we talk about this, that we are, that which is true, period. And a lot of academia and science, I think, obfuscate. They try to unpack what's true, but there is also a political agenda, an economic agenda, all these kinds of things. That which is true. And if we keep coming back to that true point, we start speaking the same language. And that's why the second I saw your Dougherty set, I'm like, oh yeah, that's spot on. It resonates inside my gut.
Right. That's why it's like what people know when they see it, like Don Scott, he knew exactly what it was. Right. And then I gave him all the images, and then he gave me a beautiful page and a half of information about it. He put words to what I could only dream to have said about the set myself. and everybody's gonna have something different to say about it. And eventually, once we get inside of these spires, inside of these networks, inside of these sound temples, and meditate on these structures, we will become lucid enough to create the networks to get into them, whether it's through brain modification, and it starts with Elon Musk and his electric futurist thinking and neural networks and casting neural networks in our brain, along with fungus maps to make us act like certain creatures. I mean, who knows where the future's going? But I can tell you, there's a lot of because of the fact of how predictive the Dougherty network and the Dougherty networks have been. There's so much more predictive capacity inside of it lies there for everybody else to understand more. And when I release the book, I'm going to release the PDF files and the Illustrator files for people to do their own magic with it. And all of the see, I'm hesitant to do it because every single shape in bubble sculpting you can make with one shape, one print of the Dougherty set. So you can start creating crystals as soon as you get the set in your hand. You can start carving crystals at home and gluing them together, and it's super simple. It's way simpler than you could even imagine bubble sculpting. So I think that's a lot of the future lies in us understanding what these networks are, these neural networks, and how the interconnecting geometry works, and these cascading lattices, and how the optics mirror. When you put a mirror here, how can you see down here? When you put a mirror here, how can you see up over there? Periscopes, kaleidoscopic. But
cameras, that's how cameras work, eh?
Mm-hmm. Love is watching, like Brighton was talking about right when I came in after the break where I got cut off for a second. The observer is in the center here, and this is the cone, and I can't say enough about how waves recursively add and subtract and go moving through here, through these straw-like Birkeland currents or cylinders, and that's conjugation. That's how waves subtract and multiply and add, and that's what creates induction and induces patterns and current and energy. It's all energy.
You know, buddy, you bring this up in the nodes. This is how you travel in consciousness. I was sharing this with Brighton a while back. I can either look at my hand and say, this is my hand, which is the typical language, how we use language, and somehow we possess, and I'm using that word very specifically, we possess our own hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing of which we are a spirit that possesses it. Or we can say, I am hand. And actually, in doing so, our consciousness begins to travel to the nerve endings of our hand and awaken it, or we become it from the inside out. And all of a sudden, your awareness, your center point of awareness is in your hand. And all of a sudden, it's tingling more. And
Wow.
you feel yourself there. You can see and feel the world from that place, versus a lot of times we think and feel the world from our head, from behind our eyes. You can start to feel it from your hand. You know, you become handed mitts.
Dude, you have no idea.
Absolutely resonate with that.
Yeah, you have no idea what you just reminded me of. I can too.
I can confirm that. And when I paint, I feel that. The truth is when I'm painting, I'm gone. I'm not.
Totally.
One of the difficulties I have with producing art is that I'm lost. You know, I am in another place, and my hands are actually I'm living my life in that very way. And oftentimes people enter a room and I don't see them. I don't remember talking to them. I'm not in my body, I'm in my hands. And that is really how I've described it. It's so funny that you would bring that up.
If I could relate to what you just said,
Totally.
and try to make this short, I will elaborate on my experience with my hands and my fingertips and consciousness in my hands. It began in 2005 when my dog was on her last breaths, and we took her out into the field behind my house, and we had her pick her spot to bury her. And as her last walk, she started actually, trotting and moving faster and like feeling better, and the sun was going down. There was a cumulonimbus cloud, and the whole rainbow came through the entire cloud. And the dog picked a spot, laid down. We picked a spot. We sat there, me and my mom, and I had this experience where my heart expanded, and I felt my hands tingle, and I felt like this energy, this spherical stacking energy in my hands, like an arc from one hand to another. And I was like, what the heck? I went inside, and I put my hands on the dog, and I was like, do I have healing hands? I've heard of this. And I'm like, is this the gift of healing hands? Because everything is a gift. There's so many gifts in the kingdom, and all we have is the gifts that we constantly get. I don't know about you guys, but there's a cornucopia of gifts out there. If you haven't got them, you need to look closer, because we all got them. So I'm laying my hands on the dog, and I'm like, okay, well, all right, nothing's going on. Then I'm like, okay, this is weird. I go in the bathroom. I do it again because I can do it on command. And then all of a sudden, I see my eyes expand, my pupils expand, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, okay, so there's a correlation between my heart expanding, my hands having this feeling, and my eyes expanding. This was unbeknownst to me at that time. This was first time I had an encounter with the heart chakra. I'm sure you've heard of this, but this was my encounter with the heart chakra. I've had many extreme visceral experiences, one by one, but this was unbeknownst to me the very first of what were going to be a collective of experiences with my hands that I've been trying to do research on ever since. After that, my kid was born, and Aurora was born, and it's probably a couple days after, maybe the first day or the second day, I'm eager to try putting my hands on her and expanding my pupils. So I do it, and immediately she gets this huge smile, and I'm like, Christine, come here, look, Christine. Christine confirmed it time after time after time. Even when she was dreaming, I could do this. My mom's always claimed that she could feel like this energy that comes out of my dad, like, I don't know, people have certain energy or whatever when she like holds him or whatever. So that's another experience. Another experience after that is I had eyeballs all over my hands. My hands became eyeballs, literally consciousness. And as my hands were eyeballs, I saw the sun with reaching arms to me, and nothing but reaching arms. And then I realized consciousness is nothing but reaching out and offering itself to everyone all the time. And the best things in life are free, of course. The most priceless things in life are free. And that's the offering of the universe. And then after this, I had another experience where this was the crowning achievement of my hands, the adornment of fractality, the beatitudes of adornment on my fingertips. I had an experience, and I actually collected all 12 of the crystals of the New Jerusalem that it speaks of, and I put them in a certain order around the Dougherty set. There's only 12 spires that you can see. I put them in the order around there's a certain order that it says too in the Bible. You can find it. It's in the Old Testament, the certain order of the stones and stuff like that in the stacking arrangement. But so, and then I had an experience where all of the elements in the universe came flowing through my fingertips, except for heavy metals. And I couldn't understand why heavy metals didn't come through my hand. They might be toxic or something, but all of the elements came through my hands. And then they grew into blue crystals and blue crystal tips. And to this day, I have blue crystals on the tips of my fingers. And I don't know what that means. And I do mudras, and mudras are gigantic in my, I guess, energy expression. When you're in a flow state, my hands move in mudras. They naturally lock into positions, like hacky sacking or different flow states. You'll notice like your face might lock up or your lips might lock up, and when you're in flow states. But yeah, that's the quick version of my fingers growing ripe. I don't know what any of it means, but I'm still studying it. And India has a lot of culture to do with that.
Buddy?
Yeah. Brian?
I thought it was interesting. Yeah, this is Brian. Sorry I came in late and everything. I literally had a truck falling apart as I was trying to get home.
You're all right. Good to hear from you. Sorry to hear about that.
Goodness. It's all good. I got the skills to fix it. It's just a thing. We're already narrowing it down. But my point is, what I want to bring up is, it was interesting how you said that in the vision and everything and what you were doing and experiencing, like you feel the flow of all the minerals and everything, but not heavy metals. Now, this is interesting that the New Jerusalem church, the new temple, our new cathedral of the heart, a living temple in biblical terms, does not have iron in it. And that we literally ourselves make up this iron molecule through oxygen compression. And some of the purest forms of, and we talked about this on the show before, that the purest forms of iron are compressed through oxygen, like 17 oxygen molecules compressed in the right rare fractions and everything can create iron. And it's interesting how you're saying that you didn't have any heavy metals going through your hands, and that especially with what I'm seeing with all the research I've found that we will pretty soon not need the iron, and we have been fed the iron, the idea of eating animal, another component to need their iron. And that it's a false lie. We don't. Oxygen breathing, as we talked about, salt and everything. But that was something I wanted to just bring up as it was on topic still. When you're talking about your hands and the energy that was created that way and the consciousness thereof.
Is iron a heavy metal?
Yeah, it's the one. That's the reason why. That's the reason why your brain takes on the manganese, magnesiums, and zincs, aluminums, and all the irons. And your graphites and everything like that go to the feet. That's why people that have diabetes, the irons all stop circulating through the feet because everything goes through the left foot, down through the left foot, up, through the crotch area, up into the right foot, down, then all the way up, then back into the liver, burns, it goes through the heart, it does again. So the heavy metals stay on the feet, and that's why people lose them, because it clogs up all the arteries.
No shit.
Good.
Yeah. So how do we drain these heavy metals? B, should we be taking Ormus and consuming magnesium?
Yeah, we have to remember this though. Absorption rates, for one, anything that's been processed now is literally almost reduced to a 60% absorption rate. You're going to get 75% absorption rate. It's just a beautiful, clean product. And I'm talking about any product across the shelf. You know, once it's been processed, unless it's just been cold filtered, and then, you know, chopped up, you know what I'm saying? The word process means that it's been cooked. And so you got to watch those kind of things that have, you know, been processed through any kind of means. As long as they're all natural whole foods, you're going to get 75 to maybe 80% if it's just a chopped whole food grain, you know. But the main thing is less is more is how I view it all the time. And that is, we need to clean out, and not just water, you know, don't just flush with water. No, we need trace minerals. We need to keep the cell salts. There's simple ways of doing it, you know, buying some pediatric stuff. You know, you can buy the cheap stuff, strawberry and bubble gum. I had a whole entire baseball team living on this stuff for a summer, begging Mr. Horn, Mr. B, will you bring this stuff back to the game? You know, and if I didn't have it, they almost wanted to mob me. And they didn't even realize I was just lifting up their electrolytes, and that's why they felt so good when they got done drinking it. But we, you know, that's what we need to do is less is more. Our body will produce everything out of anything with the junk DNA. And that's what that little trail, that little kite that hangs behind it's for all that creativity we're in. And if we give it less, it'll start being creative. And then you'll start, you know, the weight itself drops off because breathing is our first way of getting rid of toxicity. The second is through our skin, you know, sweating. The third is through our kidneys.
So I learned,
you know what I mean? We should be breathing.
Sorry, you cut out there. I thought you were done talking. I learned so much from you every time on the show. It's like, I just want you to put together like a good diet. Like maybe we'll all start doing it and become superhuman and have superhuman thoughts.
Well, we will. I'm not, and you know, it's interesting to bring it, and thank you for that. I can't take no credit, brother. I go to the place before words. He gives me everything I need. Every person that's come before me that makes this claim, you know, from Tesla to Newton to Da Vinci, everybody before me says the same thing. It's out there for everyone. You've made the claim that it's out there. Anybody who has ever been there, you know what I mean, and seen any of it knows it's there. And we just need to tap into it. And, you know, we can't hold everybody's hand. You know, even if 100 of us went out there and did this, you know, on the nutshell all the time and recorded and everything else, we need people to be responsible to raise our children this way and everything else, like you said, with a diet plan. But the fundamentals, understanding less is more first. When I cleaned out, the first time I did this, I was literally dying in 2011. Went 40 days. I thought I was doing 10 days to my grave. It went 20 to 30 to 40 days. I was like, hey, Christ went out at 40. I'm good. I'm going to go have me a muffin. And that was the first thing I ate. But it let me know that less is more. And I started living my life that way. And here's the weird thing about a phenomenon that we put the cart before the horse. We all want to be more compassionate, more loving, more kind, considerate, all these different beautiful K words, beautiful energy, kinetic words. Very Christ-centered, you know, and I don't mean the Jesus in the book. I mean the energy that we talked about that moves through your hands, the crystalla of actual sound frequencies that creates. And I realized, guess what? My 7th day into the fast, the 5th day, I didn't want food no more. I wanted the knowledge. The 7th day in, I wanted to like be around people in a social way and uplift them. By the 9th day, I was calling people up that I think I owed apology to. By the 11th day, now these are sociological things that were happening to me, as well as me chronologically writing down the physical effects. And I thought that was interesting that just by cleaning ourselves out, if you clean the world out, you're not like the world. Bipolarism is literally only the excess fusion of circuitries of sugar in the brain and in the body. And your mind is going from one end to the other because why? Your pancreas is shooting insulin back and forth. If anybody bipolar claims any way, shape, or form, look at the pancreas. Just look at the pancreas. The insulin is going off the charts. They probably got too many empty sugars, too many starch sugars, too many processed sugars, confection sugars. You know what I mean? We can simplify this. Our DNA is 50% sugar. So it's a balancing act. If you go 75% sugar, I mean, if I take 10 sugar cubes and stack them on top of each other and we add some water to them, how long do we have 10 sugar cubes standing on top of each other? We have a mushy mess. And there you go. There's your sociological, psychological state of most people. their mind is literally just infused with sugar. It's melted. And then you throw a overload in it. Like today, all I had to do is keep my wits about me, knowing that I found the problem with the car. I'm like, cool, I found the problem. I've already narrowed it down. It's a $50 fix or a $10 fix. Do I do it myself, or does somebody already tear it off? And then I do it myself. You know what I mean? So if we keep our wits about it so we can fire without all the extra sugar overload, we can realize that this moment is not the end of the day. You know, and these are fundamentals. I think these are truths that I started out with all this in the unseen. A dear friend of mine's name's Coach Rob, and it really goes along with, can you bring that one blue, it almost looks like two little baby toys. They're like stacked on top of each other. You're the toroid cell, you had that in the middle. Like even up in your right corner there, the upper right corner. Now, Rob was actually talking about sociological, psychological issuance from vertical synergy. You know what I mean? From everything from our pure self, before we ever got spanked on the butt, before, you know what I mean, anybody ever forgot to give us a bottle, you know, before anybody ever turned out the lights on us, you know, left us alone, blah, blah, blah. That perfect thread of us before we were ever influenced by this world. And as he was talking, I started mimicking out along those lines. And all this came from the unseen, the rarefaction of energy. And as I got done, I realized, oh my goodness. And he goes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I goes, wow, that's literally how electrical current works. That's now how field energy works. And that's what really was probably one of the, I even have it all written down. It was like, I think March 14th or something of 2015. And I had of all things, a wedding photography studio. I had no idea what was going on there, but I had an integral partner and an unintegral partner, and the integral partner is still a dear friend of mine, Coach Rob. The other person I just don't mention because, you know, I don't speak ill, only lift. So we forgot about him. But yeah, so it happened right there. Like literally, I chronologically wrote it down hour per hour per hour. And I think I talked about the gold, you know, the spirals, you know, on the earth and how the gold lines line up with them. And I said how they come out in cubical form. There's a hexagonal pattern that makes a cubical arrangement in the Earth's core before you even see the surface. Remember we talked about that one of the other shows? That came up that night too. And all this was a vision. And the actual person I was with, Coach Rob, he saw in almost holographic form what I was talking about in front of me, which I thought was interesting that I superimposed it. You know, we saw it literally live, real time out in front of us, as if it was kind of a bluish green hologram that we were seeing. And he confirmed that's what, you know, he saw it too.
So it's like the geometry of thoughts, beamforming, acoustics. I want to throw a couple thoughts out there.
You're onto it.
Do the thoughts create dew? Do they create sweat?
Yes.
You
They
know,
create condensation. How about we look at it like that? When you compress something, it condenses.
And people are more likely to do something if they're already in a pattern of doing it. And like the next Netflix show that's going to come on is already pre-prescribed to them because it says countdown in 3, 2, 1. Then the next one comes on. It's Path of Least Resistance. That person's most likely going to watch the next episode because it already made the decision.
Yeah, but they know that binge watching. Yes.
I'm very into the geometry of habits. We're going to do a show on the geometry of habits and what they are.
Well, inspiration inspires inspiration, and sloth begets sloth. You know what I mean? So you're absolutely right. And, you know, an object in motion remains in motion unless an outside force acts upon it. And then in the same return, an object that is absolutely static will remain static at rest without any outside force. So if the two don't meet, you know what I mean, then you don't have a formula to solve. And absolutely right about, you know, the consciousness. That's probably the simplest way I can describe the very creation of all things. There was nothing, and then it was everything. There was everything that was nothing, as we would call it. But the nothing, therefore, thought of something. And then he made her everything. And then she became all things. And then, therefore, we now see some of those things. So, therefore, the heat came first. He had to consciously, the creator had to actually consciously focus so intensely at 3,000 degrees Kelvin, 365, 10 to the 365 degree of accuracy, to the creation of the universe, had to be that. So, had to focus precisely at 3,000 degrees Kelvin, which is another interesting number. And he created condensation. Then that condensation came to the point of life. It blew up into life. It didn't explode and destroy. It sustained life because of the harmony that it came with. And therefore, that's your condensation. That is visible light. The condensation is a visible light, but all that it took to make the condensation, the heat, the rarefaction, the cooling that you can't see, that's all around us. That's the pure light that they call darkness. The dark matter and dark energy, God, I could strangle some of these yahoos. The last people that they had to split the award for the Nobel Prize for calling dark matter and dark energy and stuff. It's like it's absolutely insane. It's pure light and visible light. That's all that exists, and we're going to find that out at an elementary level. I love your stuff. All this stuff here, the kids are going to be understanding this when we get older. We're trying to figure it out as we're audio taping it, but and videotaping something. But we're like
Tupac. We're like Tupac and Biggie, just rapping about it. Like just trying to introduce it to the public.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My hardest problem about this, buddy, and everybody else here, and maybe it's the same interest for everybody else. My hardest problem is, how do you describe what doesn't have words? I saw everything. I didn't see nothing, but everything was shown to me. I experienced everything would be a better word. I experienced everything in a place before words that absolutely had no sound, but everything was around as buzzing. I felt it was like a warm hug. So how do you describe what doesn't have words? That's why he chose artists.
Yeah, you design it, like Brighton and I, or Alex Gray, visionary artists.
Thank you, because we can say 1,000 words at a time, right? And this takes millions upon millions. I mean, this is data upon data, and you guys say the same thing. If it wasn't for the 1.618, if we didn't have the phi, that spiral, that ever returning sconce. I would have lost my friggin' mind. I'm not kidding. In 2016, I had a big choice to give everything up for ministry and go to Georgia on a ministry call. And I, nobody believed me. Nobody. I was like, talking things that I had it all worked out on paper. All the math worked out. So then I fell into a thing called a dear gentleman named J.D. Jeffries, and he had figured out the Nazca lines. And my math, I just finished his math. He had proven there was a right angle going on with the monkey showing the right angle and the Nazca lines and all those features. And I said, wow, there's your, if you take the carryover of one angle and put it on the other, you have a 330, 60, 90. We are still best friends to this day, dear brothers in this cause that we have, you know what I mean? And so we became integral instead of competing. Does that make sense? And we overcome ego. Because there was no ego. We both had common goal, like two little kids playing in the sandbox, trying to make the coolest castle ever. And then invite all the chicks and all the friends and every little cool person that's in the world over to play with our sandcastle, right? And hopefully one of these guys doesn't come over and be the one that's jealous and kick it all down. I mean, that's the kind of, we really need this kind of love. We need whatever Buddy's got in his mind, he's got to just want to share it with everybody else like you're doing. Same thing for me. I'm encouraged by you to do this. You literally encouraged me to make this the time to get it out there. I wanted everything perfect, refined, and now I can piggyback off your stuff. It's beautiful. I saw your work earlier today, and I went to screenshot it. I want to let you know this. I seen your work earlier. I didn't know it was your work, so I'm like, oh my God, Buddy's gonna love this. And as I honed in to bring it up so I could screenshot it the same way, like, wow, this is just like your work. I'm like, Dougherty stuff. Dougherty network. I swear to goodness, I belly laughed to myself so loud. Dougherty network, and I'm like, wow, it's got to be some new work. But it was beautiful. It was showing how you, how you got the torus and the toroid. They're two different. The torus controls the toroid. The toroid is the condensation, as you talked about, swirling.
Honestly, there's not even a toroid. Everyone thinks it's a toroid. It's a helicoid or a helix.
Yes, I'll go with that. Absolutely, because the
toroid produces a helicoid in the helix.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. As it's a motion, if we quantify it, that's why you get the DNA helical pattern, because it's moving. It's actually like, down a set of tracks that don't exist, but they're plasma, they're done in the Dougherty set. Right. It's beautiful. I love your technical, your minute detail. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
I'm striving
It's
for
very
that.
tough.
I really.
It's precise. It has to be exactly perfect. It's not 1 micrometer off. It's that's why I went
You're
to school
absolutely
for
right.
it.
A perfect guide can, or I should say, a perfect creator. Let's have some beautiful universal terms. But a beautiful creator who's perfect. A perfect creator cannot create outside of his perfectedness, and that's what we are. And everything is perfect if we see it through the right perspective. Through love goggles, what I call it.
So we started at around 1 o'clock. It's 3:43. I have a couple of things to wrap up.
Go ahead.
To
Thank
wrap
you
up
for
a
the
few,
time.
or to wrap up a few thoughts. I'll open the mic back up for anybody else who wants to have any closing remarks or thoughts. But this is what I wanted to say right off the bat. This is like an initial thought, and you're thinking about it, and the form is just constructing. This is a conscious thought, conscious cohered thought. This is just an abstraction here, looking at these images. They're like a Bessel function images that are similar to rings on a tree or whatever. Many different things that we've seen, including Mikey's work that we've shown. When you hold that Phiral temple up, it creates these nested toroids, these nested toroidal donuts. But what if our thoughts are like Birkeland currents as well, which is kind of what we've talked about quite a bit all the way along the electric view, all the way up until now for a few years. This is like the beginning. You recur it more, you hit it hard. This is it developing, so it's on its upstage, its upswing, its negentropic life force. This is it full swing, throbbing, hitting it hardcore, going right to the point, nailing the idea. And this is complete missing the point, missing the mark, missing the nail of the hammer, incoherence, incoherent thought, broken, basically psychotic, dualistic thinking. And this would be like your brain waves cohering, or you could refer to it as concentration and decentration, like Walter Russell would. You concentrate, it produces more energy, more sweat, umwelt, chutzpah, and then you decentrate and you relax and you hang out with the lilies and the swans and you go on a date or whatever. But you can have both at the same time. You can have your cake and eat it. So if you're what's it called, multi-personality. All right, so we got into we didn't touch as much as I wanted to on horns and the geometry of horns. But horns are unicorns. Why wouldn't we get into unicorn geometry? Yes, please. It is the national animal of Scotland. For Christ's sake. I don't know if you guys know that or not.
On your unicorn topic right there, I do want to put in at this measure that think about this. If we slow it down instead of a unicorn, and just like it sounds, right? Unicorn. Well, that's what we've always known that to be a one horn little animal, and most pink things and girls' wardrobes have it on them. And and if you want to run around with one, yeah, some people got speculation because we're a judgmental world. But hey, sometimes people just want to do that stuff. But the idea being, if we break down the word unicorn, unique horn, and only because of my last name being Horn, H-O-R-N-E with an E on the end, did I know this. Is a gentleman named Plasma Nikola Tesla that was on one of the groups I was in for a bit, and he told me that with the E on it means truth. So you think about that. We should all be unicorns, unique truths, because Buddy's a unique truth. I'm a unique truth. Miss Heather's a unique truth. Michael's a unique truth. You know, some of the other, Brighton is unique. We're all unique truths, and we all have to share them, bring this one unique truth together. So wouldn't it be cool? We could just actually put that truth out there, even that we split the band. Maybe we're not looking for this, you know, one-horned horse running through the woods is what I'm getting at. Maybe we are all absolutely looking for a mythological,
What is the
truth.
what is the etymology of horn?
Horne with an E at the end means it's based in truth, which actually in Hebrew is amen, amen. Then you can take it all the way back into the Egyptian dialect. You have Amon, Amon, amen, Aman. It means truth. Amen, amen. It means truly, truly. That's all it means. After the Lord was, and same thing. When the Christ said, "Verily, verily," they make it sound like he's talking about verily, verily. You know, life is but a dream. No, it actually they misconstrued that in the translation. It was veritas, veritas. Truly, truly. Notice almost all the things he's emphasizing truth. Everything in the New Testament. You know, I mean, if you get around all the bullshit and just go straight to red letters, you look at the veritas, veritas, not verily. Who the hell talks like that? See how they make it seem like a stupid, you know, a ridiculous book to pay attention to. But if you really pay attention to the, what do you call, Easter eggs, since we're on that subject, of the misgivings of what they've done and the infiltration of man to make it seem that way, then you can really see a really cool book that multi-levels everything and multi-dimensions from, you know, the first just 6 days of creation, first, you know, I mean, and I can break them right down to their musically, as we talked about, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. That's a sustain. And that is the sound you can go look at, as you talk about, up on a SETI. That's a sound that is echoing through the universe right now. That, you know what I mean? That's what's going through the universe. So as I'm saying, that is sustain.
A hypersonic wind that cavitates into Markland convection.
Thank you. And now let's go with the fact of which way is it going? See, these idiots are out there, and pardon me, I don't want to be facetious. Thank you, but the sound is the return. See, I'm getting, see, and you know, not I should say the E is the return, and then you've got the rarefaction gets, like you said, the giving of the you don't really hear the car coming at you, but you heard it go by. You know what I mean? As the car went by, whoa, you know, you hear a little bit of the sound as it's coming. But the rarefaction of it passing you by, the sound leaving you is a sound that you really get, you know, moved by. And that's what we're hearing is a return to the measure of creation. And that's why it's a sustain. It's not rest as in, you know, oh God, I laid down behind a tree and I pulled a, you know, a Newton moment and watched it, you know, an apple fall off the tree and I rested. No, he sustained. And he started fractalizing, and that's what happened. That's a fractalization. We talk about this, you know, the fractalization of why it's a salamander, why it's a frog. You know, why is it a human baby, a male or female? What was the resonation? And I got a lot of funny stuff about that. That's very true of why some men have daughters, some men have girls, and some men have, you know, boys, and sometimes. You know what I mean? There's a lot to it, to anatomy and heritage as well. And so, I mean, these things are all about rarefactions. Where are we fractalizing from? And you know, this will be elementary. I love this. That's what I love about this show. As I talk and listen to this, I think, God bless, man. It's my kids' will be listening to this someday and be like, Grandpa, you're smart. That's wrong. You know, I remember. My dad come home one day from college and had a 161 IQ, you know, and did that IQ test. And I was like, no wonder why he always figures out my, you know, what I'm got going on, because he's smart. But, you know, I look at him in a different light. But, yeah, that's what's happening here. But hey, close it up, man. Thank you for the time. But I just wanted to go with that. We are unique truths. We are unicorns. And maybe we're not chasing, like I said, some silly little prancing, you know, horse in the woods with a, you know, a javelin coming off its head. Maybe it's the unique truth that we are absolutely all searching for.
Yes. We're searching
for ended on my part. Thank you for that.
We're searching for veritas, veritas, the horns.
Veritas, yes.
And the horns, I wasn't even thinking about it as the geometry of sound, but remember we use shells to call as musical instruments as horns. We also use these horns as horns. Where do you think the
And
word
every
horn came
trumpeting,
from?
every moment in the Bible is signified by what? Trumpeting, right? Of a
Yeah.
horn. And look at you. That one thing you got that it's either in blue or red. You know, like I said, they almost look like two baby toys. You know, inverted on top of each other. Now they look like they could be spinning. Those are horns. You know, there's you had them in your drawings earlier.
Oh, on the Skype images.
Yeah,
Please.
that one right there. Now, if you put a red set next to that, you know, horizontally, you've just created, you've given a perfect version of what creation is. See that red set that's up in the corner there? You know, if you turn that on its side, I'd say actually take the blue set, just turn it red, turn it on its side, dial it in, and if you put it all together, you would see where heat and condensation, and then everything is the focal point in the center. Is it granite? Is it, you know, Brian? Is
And that's the horn. And that's the horn right here. That's
Yes.
the horn of Mikey.
Yes, thank you. That's it. And those are octave exchanges. And each one of them is an octave exchange, a
Yep.
dimensional octave exchange. And that's how, you know, if you divide that by 11 and then do 11, 11, now you understand how to do levitation. And that's how a bee cavitates. The bee is called a bee because it starts out in a B, a static B. That's its base. And then you split divide it into the next 11th octave, into the next 11th octave, and E and E. A B is exactly what it is. It does exactly what it is.
So,
it is exactly what it does.
So let me close this out and ask anybody else if they want to say anything.
Excellent.
Have Mikey say goodbye because it's been quite a while. Sorry to cut you off, Brian, but in closing, I want to say, Mikey, your work is phenomenal, and I love your models, your real models that you're actually creating, 3D printing, and producing. You can see the phase conjugation is the braiding nested phi waves into recursion, producing optimized translation of vorticity, and that's what, as Dan Winter would call it, creates life. Life, according to Dan Winter, is the ability to pull charge out of the vacuum. So you pull charge out of the vacuum and you become a minimal energy configuration with minimal surface tensions and maximum space, maximum volume, minimal surface. And you start to create plasmoids, beings, creation, shells, and jellyfish, and beings, Sono-biology. And Mikey, you know, let's hear a couple of words from you before we close out here. Sorry that we had so many guests on and so much was talked about.
No, it was good. Thanks for having me on the show and like giving some attention to my work.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to, if you're coming out for the next Electric Forest, you better meet up with my ass on your way through.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do that again. But
you're not going up yet?
The main reason I want to build these temples is to like create environments where people can feel that charge.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great point. And you see the gnome here. That's exactly what he wants to do, is create so people can be in these fractal fields and feel these, in tune with these fractal environments, and have a proper death or ascension into enveloping into the higher you, the higher selves, and just whatever, really, right?
Yeah. And so, yeah, I have a page on Facebook, the Phiral Sound Temples. I'm regularly posting content on there if you want to keep up with that. And I also have a GoFundMe where I'm trying to reach funds to get a large-scale 3D printer to actually build this stuff.
Honestly, a good place for you to try to get funding for a temple like that, especially since you have it all coordinated into quadrants.
Yeah.
You maybe Burning Man or something.
Burning Man grant, yeah.
Yeah, Burning Man grant, or just a collective, a local collective. What state are you in? Typically,
New York.
You're out in New York. Okay. Yeah, there's definitely the New York burners community. I met up with some of the burning community. It's a tougher crowd to crack. I don't know if you're part of them, but There's
No,
the
I haven't been into any Burning Man stuff yet.
I've been a part of a lot of the community. I haven't been to my first burn yet, but everywhere I go, I'm friends with, and I meet some of the most beautiful people, and I notice they're from the community, and you know, they're all lovey-dovey, kissing on the lips, straight up, straightforward. Hey, what's up, brother? Some of the
Yeah.
coolest fucking people in the world.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'll look into that.
yeah, man. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your time too. For everybody on the show that we put in the time for the weekend, I learn a ton from everybody, and thank you for all your contributions. It really means a lot to me, and the revivification or validation of the systems that I'm working with, that they make some sense to someone out there. And the
That
last
image
episode,
right there, buddy. That image
yeah.
you're showing right now. When I was younger, I made a fountain very similar from that, like from pipes that fit into each other, because I was trying to like squeeze water upwards.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
It looked very similar to
that. Clay fountains are amazing, and just in general, the shapes that you do remind me of, if you get into working with clay, you could make some sweet fountains with your curls.
Yeah, for sure.
And pearls and stuff.
But yeah, that's the 3D printer I want to get, extrudes in clay.
Oh, wow, dude. Clay, you know, that's has the earth elements, the earth properties to it.
Yeah, I'd like to mix it with like hemp.
It has that dielectric charge to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're building these structures, and ultimately to create a fractal field, which is a phase conjugate dielectric. So you want to sit inside of them and energize, like people are doing all over California. Whether you think they're crazy or not, they're meditating and getting energy.
Right.
So
and
every home should have one. Every home should have one. But it'd be great if you could get a contract to like have one of those things. I love that work you're doing, by the way, Michael.
Thanks.
But wouldn't it be great if you had like one of these, like if you could get a contract somehow or another to get a contract every one of these parks. You know how they got the kids stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where they got, hey, why shouldn't you have the same billing as a dolphin or the little concrete turtle? You know what I mean? Wouldn't that be great? I mean, if you couldn't get one in every home, why couldn't we have it so we're, hey, buddy's neighborhood, maybe buddy's wife's like, I got the kids here. They're all driving me absolutely out of my mind. They're over there by the monkey bars. I'm going to go sit in this cool little thing for a minute and, and just kind of chill.
It'd be great to have them at parks.
Wouldn't it be great? I think you should try to push it. I mean, you give me $1 for the idea if you like, but I think that all profit aside, I think that would be just absolutely great, because we need sanctuaries. My moment started with the prayer closet, and yours is like you built a beautiful supersonic prayer closet.
Local beautification grants. I did a huge beautification grant in Detroit. You go to your city, you're
part of it. That's right. Yeah, right by my art gallery down there. Oh my gosh.
Beautification grant. I'll look into that. Beautification grants.
Beautification, installation, long-time permanent installation, beautification grants, that kind of thing.
Okay.
How big do you
That's
think
how you
can
built
make
your
one
gazebo, isn't it, buddy?
That is how we built the gazebo, and a bunch of other crap that you always got to pull grants for. That's honestly, grant writing and grant funding is how everything is done. So if anyone wants to know how anything in Congress gets done, it's through grants. So
yeah, for sure.
That's where the gold is. If you want to know,
I'm looking to get my funding from. How big could you make one of those, Michael?
The 3D printer I'm looking at can print up to like 8.5-foot sections.
Really? Because honestly, think about this, like your college campuses. I mean, let's take it beyond a park. What if you put one in, how all the college, they all gather around, certain courtyards and stuff, because they have energies. There's a Louisiana one. It's actually got the Calvin Louisiana mounds. They're supposed to be like the oldest mounds. They're older than go you go back like that. Yeah, thank you very much for helping with the stumble moment. But anyway, they're all like they're natural energy things. Wouldn't it be cool, like, if you could make them big? Let's say you could get this printer, a 3D printer that made the sections big enough where you could actually outsource it. I used to do the auto show all the time in a couple camber locks, and you could have that thing, put together, and nobody would even know how you put it together. You know what I'm saying? And they could be, and people wouldn't even know they're coming. Like, leave a section where people could walk in and out of it, and they wouldn't even know. It's colossal, like the size of 30, 40 feet tall, 60 feet wide. You know what I'm saying?
You could put tinfoil aligned in it too, and you could make a one of those a box. I don't know, lack of remembering what the term is.
Tinfoil hat?
No, you create a barrier.
A Faraday cage.
Yeah, you can turn it into a Faraday cage, or you could also turn these little temples into functional. Think how to make them functional. Then you're gonna draw more people. So it's not only
I agree, absolutely, yes. And they actually have an aluminum fabric out now that is like that you could, instead of aluminum foil, it's actually a fabric now. It's under the same, the nano structuring, in the fabric of that. Really cool stuff.
So people could actually feel what it feels like to insulate themselves away from the negative energies for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Put your cell phone outside, please. No, someone will take your cell phone. No, I don't know. But hey, this is what I'm thinking. Like, you make it purposeful so that you could use it as like even to hide I don't know.
Under the right conditions, you wouldn't have to worry about the cell phone being on. Does that make sense, Michael? Because of your, the shape and what Buddy said, adding the basically Kevlar like aluminum, sheathing inside of it, sandwiched in between. You could bring your cell phone in, bring your laptop, bring it all in. It's useless here. You know what I mean? No matter what you thought you were doing, I don't care how much face and phonitis you had before you walked through that doorway.
A moment of clarity.
When you come through when you come through the micro spiral, it'll, you know what I mean? You're just there. You're now present. Oh, wow.
People are more apt to fund an opportunity if it is beneficial for the environment or for recycling purposes. So if you were to outfit your idea suited with some sort of recycling campaign, then it would even sound even more ecologically friendly and sound.
Well, I mean, just printing it out of clay is pretty eco-friendly.
That's the shit already. You're already there, dude. That's like at 8-foot pieces. This is going to be huge. I can't wait to see the video construction process when you're done with this, man, because you're already going to do it. Nobody's going to tell you no.
No, I mean, this is what I'm going towards. There's nothing stopping it.
Well, I'm so happy for you. On that note, we didn't get into horns as much as I wanted, but truth, there's the horn. It makes the music. It calls the people. It creates a certain vibration. And here's a little scripture that had me reeling after some discoveries, particularly with toroids and the shape of your hand being like a pedal. King James Version. This is Habakkuk 3:4. His brightness was like the light. And his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. Now, that kind of closes up the whole episode. Circumambient view, resting in your own hands. You have the willpower. Everybody here has the willpower to speak life, to be part of that, the design, instead of going against the grain. But going against the grain is good. It's cool. Counterculture, somewhat. But that when you cup your hands turns into a horn, and that's the secret of light. If you can put the geometry together in your head, that might bring us to the next episode of the geometry of toroids. and all things toroid, which is, I don't know, we might do meandering river too. But thank you guys for all being here and being part of the show. Love you all very much.
All right. Love
Thanks
you
for
too.
having me. It was very enlightening as usual.
Yeah, I'm glad I had time to get in on the end, man. Bless you. Thank you very much for the time.
All right. See you guys.
Peace.
See you, Brant. See you, Brighton.
Take
See you,
care.
Heather. Love you all. Special thanks to Dan Winter. I'd like to thank Don Scott, Eugene Bagachov, Wallace Thornhill, David Johnson, Terrence Howard, Laird Scranton, Rupert Sheldrake. Check us out on our other podcasts, The Electric View and The Brighton Buddy Show. I also independently interview artists at the Universal Ones Artist Collective on Buddy Doherty's YouTube channel. The Geometric View is love is watching product, love is watching production. Thank you for doing that. Executive producers of the Geometric View are Buddy James and Brighton Cotter. Music is by the acronym Beauty, the acronym BUD, and Abyssal Dionysus is the geometer. That's me and Brighton. Thank you for being here. Catch you next Saturday. Special thanks to Jim Wenninger.